The first thing I did after being reborn as Godzilla was surrender myself to the state and let 1.4 billion people feed me, because I knew that in just 1 month, Earth would face an alien beast invasion. Every modern weapon humanity relied on would become useless. In only one night, more than half the world's population would be wiped out. But this time I had returned. 1 month before the giant beasts arrived, and I was no longer human. I had become a 100-meter-tall juvenile Godzilla. Right now, I was at the bottom of the Pacific Ocean, 10,000 meters beneath the surface. After the shock faded, I accepted what had happened. In my previous life, the alien beasts crushed my wounded body into pulp. Humans were nothing but ants before them. Now, as Godzilla, I was the only being on Earth that could fight those monsters head-on. To save humanity, I must grow as quickly as possible before the invasion. Anyone who knows Godzilla knows. An adult Godzilla eats hundreds of Ultramen per meal. An ordinary family could never afford to raise one. The only way to survive is to rely on the state in exchange for national logistics and firepower support. But I know very well that a 100-meter-tall unknown giant beast suddenly appearing on the coastline will definitely not be greeted with flowers and applause, but with a deluge of anti-ship missiles and nuclear strikes. I must prove my value, prove that I am controllable and possess intelligence that humans cannot ignore. I didn't rush to the surface. Instead, I locked my gaze on a thick pipeline crossing the ocean floor. It was a civilian undersea fiber optic cable. I carefully extended my claws, lightly touching the cable's outer insulation sleeve. I didn't cut it. Instead, I used Godzilla's special bioelectromagnetic field to tentatively connect my mental power into its signal frequency. A massive, chaotic stream of information instantly flooded my brain. I quickly filtered out the useless entertainment news and commercial data, precisely capturing the key information, confirming the current timeline, and the national defense posture of Long Country. Everything is still in time. Now it's time to say hello. I pressed my claws against the seabed rock next to the cable. My massive tail swung up violently. Then, with a rhythm that seemed clumsy, but was actually incredibly precise, I slammed it hard against the seabed. The massive kinetic energy turned into low-frequency seismic waves, traveling through the crust and the water, at speeds far exceeding the speed of sound toward the coastline of Long Country thousands of kilometers away. This wasn't meaningless destruction. This was standard Morse code. I tapped 3 times in succession, sending the same message. No malis. World-ending intel to report. After sending the signal, I didn't wait around. I didn't know if the military could immediately decode this seismic code with such a strong sci-fi flavor, but I had to move. My legs suddenly exerted force, changing direction, sprinting at full speed toward the territorial waters of Long Country's East Sea. After 4 hours of high-intensity swimming, finally, the color of the water ahead began to lighten. The outline of the continental shelf in the dark seawater faintly emerged. I gave my tail a sudden flick, forcing my massive body to break in the water. The immense inertia whipped up a violent undercurrent, churning the seabed's sand into chaos. I stopped, without crossing the line by a single inch. I positioned my 100-meter-tall body precisely in the East Sea of Long Country, in the high seas outside the territorial line. At this moment, I could clearly feel, hundreds of meters above me on the surface, it was already filled with dense electromagnetic signals. Countless radar waves locked onto me, locking onto my area. I knew that if I took even one more step forward, I would definitely face a saturated attack of depth charges and anti-submarine torpedoes. I emerged most of my body from the water, without letting out any provocative roar, nor waving my sharp claws, just standing silently on the ocean surface, like a silent, massive island. I raised my head, calmly gazing at the distant coastline, where Long Country's coastal radar stations were located. I took a deep breath. The blade-like dorsal fins on my back once again glowed with a blinding neon blue light. This scene was instantly detected by the headquarters hall thousands of miles away. Everyone's hearts leaped into their throats. High-energy reaction. A massive amount of unknown energy is gathering inside the target's body. It seems to be preparing an attack. The radar operator's voice cracked from extreme tension. I didn't attack. I simply unleashed an atomic breath from my mouth, like a high-power plasma torch, precisely sweeping across the surface of the sea, searing a row of giant, glowing characters into the water in the language of Long Country.
Linje surrenders.
Reporting an apocalyptic crisis will not cause destruction. The steam lingered under the intense heat. Those giant words under the sunlight were so clear it felt absurd. Almost at the same time, inside the underground command hall of Long Country's Defense HQ, a piercing top-level red alert instantly shattered all silence. In front of the massive holographic tactical screen, hundreds of staff officers and technicians were frantically pounding their keyboards. Countless data streams streams cascaded down like waterfalls. The entire hall was bathed in a glaring red, alert light looking like a scene from hell. East Sea ADIZ phased array radars fully active. Target locked. Deep sea sonar array reporting. Target's underwater mass estimated over 100,000 tons, releasing continuous gravitational wave interference. Conventional submarines cannot approach. Sea-based Dongfeng anti-ship missiles. Entering final 30-second ignition countdown. Awaiting orders. A tense, oppressive atmosphere filled everyone's chest. Theater Commander Lin Jianjun strode into the hall. On his sharp, weathered face, the solemnity was almost palpable. Report the situation. Lin Jianjun stepped up to the main console, his voice as steady as a mountain. The composure forged through mountains of corpses and seas of blood, instantly quelled most of the panic in the hall. Commander, 5 minutes ago, an abnormal high-energy reaction occurred in the East China Sea international waters. Military satellites captured it. The intelligence officer swallowed hard, his fingers pulling up the footage on the console, his voice carrying a sense of unmistakable absurdity and trembling. We've captured an unknown creature, 100 meters tall. The main screen flickered as high-definition satellite imagery unfolded. It was a behemoth that completely defied all human biological knowledge, like a dark, isolated island, looming over the raging seas. But the gaze of every staff officer and general present did not linger on the monster itself. Everyone stared intently at the sea in front of the beast. That area of the ocean was boiling. Amidst the thick white mist of high-temperature evaporation, a line of giant Chinese characters, written in perfect block script, was slowly undulating with the rise and fall of the waves.
Linie surrenders.
Reporting a world-ending crisis. Will not cause destruction. Lin Jianjun's brow twitched violently, his sharp gaze cutting like a knife toward the intelligence officer. A holographic prank? Or some new type of optical deception weapon from an enemy nation? It's not a projection. The technical director bolted upright, nearly crushing the tactical tablet in his hand. Infrared thermal imaging shows those characters were literally burned in by extreme heat. The local sea surface temperature surpassed 3,000 degrees in an instant. Commander, this monster just emitted a high-energy plasma beam from its mouth, like a laser engraver, carving these words directly into the ocean surface. The technical director wiped cold sweat from his forehead, his voice strained. This requires an absolutely insane level of energy control. If he had expanded the width of that beam, even if he just swept it across our coastline, the current coastal defenses of Donghai City would have been completely vaporized. The command hall fell into a deathly silence.
À 100,000 ton préhistorique.
Behemoth was writing Chinese characters at the gates of the East Sea. At the same time, above the territorial waters of the East Sea, 2 stealth fighters tore through the clouds like sharp swords, entering a circling alert state at 10,000 meters. Falcon 1 calling command center, arrived above the target sea area. Visual confirmation of target. Pilot Zhang Rui gripped the control stick tightly, his heart pounding frantically, at a rate of 100 beats per minute. Looking down from the altitude, the visual pressure exerted by that behemoth was enough to make one suffocate. The cold light shimmering on its pitch-black scales, even from 10,000 meters away, still sent a chill down one's spine. Fire control radar locked, ready to fire at any moment. Zhang Rui's finger hovered over the missile launch button. With a single order, the heavy, air-to-sea missiles under the wings would roar out instantly, giving this monster a taste of modern industry's steel fury. But the order to fire did not come. Just then, the behemoth on the sea moved. Zhang Rui's pupils contracted sharply, pulling the control stick hard to evade a potential anti-air counterattack. But contrary to everyone's expectations, the behemoth did not raise its head to roar, nor did it open its abyss-like maw. It simply slowly raised those 2 thick and powerful forelimbs, crossing its hands covered in sharp black claws, in an extremely steady and slow motion, almost bordering on timid, and locked them behind its head. Then its massive body slowly sank, until the freezing seawater submerged its waist. With its thick tail coiled, it sat completely on the edge of the shallow continental shelf. This was a standard, hands-on-head squat used by human prisoners of war. Zhang Rui was stunned in the cockpit, his tongue practically tying itself in knots. Falcon 1 calling. Target has its hands on its head. Target is performing completely non-threatening actions. No aggressive intent detected. Inside the underground fortress, watching the satellite footage of the prisoner's squat, Lin Jianjun clenched his fist, his knuckles turning white from the pressure. He had fought for half his life and seen every kind of spectacle, but the sight before him completely shattered his strategic understanding. Go fetch Elder Qin. Lin Jianjun took a deep breath, issuing the order. 3 minutes later, a titan in both bioengineering and nuclear physics, academician Chun Jingshan, over 70 years old, wearing a faded, old white lab coat, was practically dragged into the hall by 2 fully armed guards. Old Lin, you dragged me out of the lab in such a rush. This had better be something monumental. Before Chun Jingshan could finish, his eyes were glued to the main screen. In those eyes, Once clouded by sleepless nights, an unprecedented light of fanaticism instantly erupted, as if he were beholding the world's most perfect work of art. Elder Chun, look at its energy reaction. Lin Jianjun stepped aside from the main console. Chun Jingshan didn't even spare him a glance, lunging straight for the console, his fingers flying across the keyboard, quickly pulling up the energy waveform and thermodynamic distribution from Lin Ye's miniature atomic breath. Looking at those dense strings of data, Chun Jingshan's breathing grew more rapid, his chest heaving violently until he finally pressed himself against the screen, his finger trembling as he traced the smooth waveform. Perfect, simply perfect, Chun Jingshan murmured, loud enough for the entire command hall to hear. The nuclear fusion reaction within its body has zero radioactive waste leakage. The Geiger counter readings around it are even lower than the background radiation. In the center of Donghai City, this is practically a perfectly living cold fusion reactor. Chun Jingshan whipped his head around, pointing at a segment of data and looking at Lin Jianjun like a religious zealot. Old Lin, look at this trough in the energy output. When it emitted that 3,000-degree beam, the surrounding seawater rose by less than 2 degrees. This means it compressed all the energy, absolutely within the beam itself, without a single shred of leakage or loss. The hall became so quiet you could hear a pin drop. This isn't animal instinct. Chun Jingshan's expression suddenly turned grave, speaking each word deliberately. This is a method of physical control, far more advanced than anything humans possess. To put it bluntly, the consciousness inside this monster's understanding of nuclear energy surpasses the entire current system of the Dragon Country Academy of Sciences. On the sea, I maintained my prisoner's pose, calmly watching the stealth fighters circling above. I knew very well that a few Chinese characters and a surrender pose were not enough to make the Dragon Country High Command let their guard down. The operation of a state machine allows for no blind gambles. Facing an unknown behemoth capable of razing cities, the military's first instinct will always be defense. The 30-day countdown is too tight. I must secure an official position within the Dragon Country as quickly as possible. I must throw out a chip so heavy that the Dragon Country cannot refuse, or even bear the thought of losing. I lowered my hands, which were crossed behind my head. I took a deep breath. A massive volume of air surged into my giant lungs. My chest heaved upward. The fighter jets circling in the sky scattered instantly. The locking warnings of the fire control radar echoed frantically in my mind, but I didn't care. My dorsal fin, once again from bottom to top, lit up in a sequence of eerie blue light. The sizzling sound of heating seawater rang out again. It's happening again. Is charging. Inside the command hall, technicians shouted warnings. Lin Jianjun stared intently at the screen. Veins bulged on his forehead. He gritted his teeth and roared. Hold your fire. Without my order, no one is allowed to shoot. On the sea's surface, I opened my mouth again. This time, the plasma beam was thinner than before, controlled with far greater precision. The high-temperature beam swept rapidly across the water. The seawater boiled violently. A few seconds later, the white steam dissipated, and appearing on the surface of the sea were several dense paragraphs of new text. First, tonight at 2:04 a.m., at the Mariana Trench in the Pacific Ocean. Coordinates: 1121 foot north latitude, 14212 foot east longitude. A spatial rift will occur. The first alien scout class, silicon-based behemoth, will land on Earth. Second, its weakness is in the gap of the third abdominal carapace. Conventional artillery is useless. Armor-piercing shells combined with high-frequency sonic oscillations are required for precision demolition. Third, my weakness is in the hidden gill slits on both sides of my neck. This area has no scale coverage. It leads directly to the neural center. A single conventional heavy armor-piercing torpedo hitting here would completely destroy my brain. After writing these 3 paragraphs, I deliberately turned around. My massive body turned its back to the coast of the Dragon Kingdom. I tilted my head back, completely exposing my thick neck to the air. Then, controlling my muscles, I actively peeled back the massive defensive scales on both sides of my neck, revealing the dark red, soft-tissue gill slits without any armor protection. The sea breeze blew directly onto my most fragile nerve endings, bringing a sharp sting. I didn't move. Just like that, I left my most fatal vulnerability completely and utterly exposed. This was an absolute open gambit, and a total entrustment of my life and death. The entire Eastern Theater command hall fell into a silence as if trapped in a vacuum of absolute zero. Everyone's scalp tingled from the shock of those words. Their breathing stopped, predicting an alien invasion 12 hours from now, providing the enemy's precise coordinates and fatal weakness, and even publicly revealing its own absolute death point. What kind of monster is this? The intelligence officer's legs gave way. He collapsed completely into his chair, his face filled with disbelief. Chun Jingshan stared intently at the string of coordinates for the Mariana Trench. He turned to look at Lin Jianjun. His voice was unusually raspy. Old Lin, that location is in the blind spot of the Pacific Fleet's routine patrol. The depth exceeds 10,000 meters. Our probes can't even reach that far. If something really comes out of there, all of humanity will be completely defenseless. Lin Jianjun closed his eyes. Countless strategic simulations clashed frantically in his mind. This was a massive gamble. The stakes were the entire East Sea defense line of the Dragon Kingdom. It might even involve the fate of all mankind. 5 seconds later, he snapped his eyes open. In those hawk-like eyes, there erupted a determined and iron-blooded light. Pass my order. The first destroyer squadron of the East Sea Fleet. Set sail immediately. Advance at full speed toward the target waters. All missile systems in the theater remain locked. But cancel the launch countdown immediately. Connect me to the Supreme Command's red line. Lin Jianjun paused. His gaze remained fixed on the screen on that figure with its back to them. That massive silhouette exposing its weakness to humanity. It was a monster, yet it had acted in a way most fitting of the iron-blooded spirit of the Dragon Kingdom's soldiers. Prepare high-power deep-sea communication equipment and helicopters. I will personally go to the high seas to speak with Comrade Lin Yi face-to-face. Countdown. 24 hours. Inside the Eastern Theater's underground command center, the air felt as if it had solidified into blocks of lead. The numbers on the big screen ticked down mercilessly. Ever since that 100-meter beast calling itself Lin Yi carved its prophecy onto the sea, the entire Dragon Kingdom's intelligence network, geological monitoring web, and even overseas undercover systems had all entered a state of overloaded operation. No one in the hall had closed their eyes. The pungent smell of black coffee and the heavy, sour scent of sweat mingled together. The heavy alloy doors were suddenly pushed open. The head of intelligence clutched 2 documents tightly in his hand. He rushed toward the main console as if the wind were at his heels. His voice, due to extreme, emotional agitation, cracked, carrying a tremor of utter disbelief. Commander-in-Chief, the verification results are in. The intelligence chief slammed the first document hard onto the desk in front of Lin Jianjun. The National Earthquake Network sent an urgent confirmation 3 minutes ago. In the heart of the Taklamakan Desert on the northwest border, a crustal vibration just occurred. The focal depth and coordinates matched the warning provided by the target exactly. The magnitude was measured at exactly 3.2. A collective gasp echoed through the hall instantly. Predicting earthquakes is already a world-class challenge. A prediction precise to the decimal point and specific coordinates completely defies existing geological common sense. On Lin Jianjun's face, hard as granite, a muscle twitched almost imperceptibly. He didn't speak. His deep gaze locked onto the second document. The intelligence chief swallowed hard. His voice dropped even lower, yet it exploded like thunder in everyone's ears. This is the second one. Our highest-level overseas agents used every card in their hand to force their way into the U.S. military's core database. After cross-referencing, the parameters provided by the beast regarding the secret nuclear tests in Nevada are all correct. From the peak explosive yield, to the residual ratio of radioactive isotopes, to the geological error correction value of the detonation depth, there was absolutely no deviation. Chief, this is equivalent to the other party, stripping the highest secrets of the other side of the ocean bare, and laying them out plainly before us. Dead silence. A silence so heavy you could hear a pin drop. If predicting a minor earthquake in a remote area could barely be explained as a 1 in 10 million coincidence, then accurately reporting the most core nuclear weapon, experimental parameters of a hostile nation, completely shattered any hope of coincidence. The 100-meter beast lurking in the East Sea, exclusive security zone, was not lying. In 30 days there really will be a so-called alien beast tide that tears through the sky and descends upon Earth. It will be a cataclysm capable of completely erasing millions of years of human civilization. Lin Jianjun took a deep breath. His broad chest heaved violently. He slowly closed the file. His gaze swept across the room like an unsheathed bayonet. Notify the standby aircraft. Lin Jianjun's voice was as steady as a mountain, carrying an unquestionable resolve. I will lead the team to meet him personally. Commander, this violates safety protocols. The senior staff officer beside him immediately stepped forward, urgently trying to stop him. The opponent is an unknown creature of 100,000 tons. Its destructive power is immeasurable. As the theater commander, Lin must not put himself at risk. There is no what if. Lin Jianjun interrupted him coldly. If he wanted to attack, Donghai City would have been ruins yesterday. Since the other party has shown sincerity, there is no reason for the soldiers of Longwa to hide in a basement to negotiate. 1 hour later, East China Sea, a heavy armed helicopter tore through the thick clouds, like a circling steel falcon. Arriving at the designated sea area, the cabin door was half open. Lin Jianjun sat on the edge of the cabin. Beside him was a core negotiation team composed of top military psychologists, and academician Chun Jingshan, who insisted on coming, clutching several heavy detection instruments in his arms. "Commander, we have reached the target area. Altitude 100 meters. The pilot reported over the communication channel." Lin Jianjun leaned out, grabbed tactical binoculars and looked down, even though he had seen it countless times on high-resolution satellite images. But when he actually looked down with his own eyes at the behemoth, that megalophobia rooted deep in the genes still made his breath tighten. The helicopter hovered directly in front of me. Lin Jianjun pressed the button on his communication helmet, connecting to the high-power directional loudspeaker. "Below the helicopter, Mr. Lin Yi, we have verified the information you provided. Now we need you to provide complete intelligence on the alien beast invasion and state your demands." The people in the cabin unconsciously tightened their grip on their weapons or instruments, staring intently at the sea surface, holding their breath, waiting for the behemoth's reaction. They had imagined countless possibilities. Perhaps he would demand vast territories. Perhaps he would demand human submission, or propose some inhumane, harsh conditions. Beneath the surface, I listened to them. To be honest, I'm starving right now, sprinting from 10,000 meters deep to the East Sea, and burning those characters onto the sea surface. My internal energy reserves have dropped below the red line. I feel like my stomach is a burning black hole, desperately needing high-density energy to fill it. I didn't use my body to slap the water in Morse code. Instead, I closed my eyes, calling upon the physics memories of my past life, precisely controlling the row of complex hidden gill slits in my neck, using high-frequency vibrations of the vocal muscles, forcing Godzilla's originally savage roar to compress and transform into a low-frequency wave that could penetrate both water and air. Then a deep, heavy voice, with a strong metallic resonance, yet a clear, articulate human male voice, vibrated directly against the eardrums of everyone inside the helicopter cabin. "The demand is simple. Feed me first." Inside the cabin, academician Chun Jingshan's hand froze midair while adjusting his glasses. His mouth hung open, like a rusted puppet. Even Lin Jianjun, who usually remained unmoved by any disaster, couldn't stop his eyelid from twitching twice. I continued. "I swam all the way from the center of the Pacific. My internal energy is almost depleted. Enriched uranium will do. I'm not a picky eater. If there's none, low radioactivity nuclear waste from decommissioned plants will suffice." I shifted into a more comfortable position in the sea. My dark golden eyes stared at that hunk of iron in the sky. "I'll give you all the intel. Just keep me fed, and I'll help you shoulder this apocalypse." Silence fell over everyone for 2 seconds. It was an absurd sense of contrast. A prehistoric beast capable of taking on an entire carrier strike group. A creature viewed as an apocalypse-level threat. His first words weren't about destroying the world, but rather like a long-haul truck driver who'd been starving for 3 days, squatting at the national gate begging for food, and boldly stating that he'd work as long as he was fed. The tension that was about to snap under the impact of these few words instantly melted away like snow, relaxing completely. Chun Jingshan was the first to react. This 70-year-old national treasure. Academician's face flushed with excitement. He snatched the spare microphone from Lin Jianjun, leaning halfway out of the cabin, shouting loudly, "We'll provide. Longwa has nothing else. But nuclear waste and enriched uranium are definitely plenty." "Young man, no, I mean,
Comrade Lin Yi,
can your digestive system directly handle heavy metal radiation? Do you need it in liquid form, as a slurry or as solid encapsulated blocks?" Facing Chun Jingshan's professional fervor, my answer was crisp and direct, without any hesitation. "Solid encapsulated. Just throw them into the sea. I'll chew them shells and all." Lin Jianjun took a deep breath, forcing down the eerie sense of absurdity in his heart, reclaiming command. He looked down at the beast on the sea surface, his tone returning to a solemn and cold hardness.
Lin Yi,
"Longwa can provide the food, but before that, I need to confirm if your power is absolutely controllable. The military cannot tilt national strategic resources toward a super bomb that could go rogue at any moment." I understood his meaning. Words are meaningless. He wants a demonstration. Look toward the 10 o'clock direction. My deep sonic wave echoed again. On the sea surface about 10 kilometers away, a decommissioned vessel floated alone, an old ship used as a live-fire target for the fleet. I slowly stood upright from the seawater, staring silently at the distant target ship. Voom, a heart-stopping low-frequency hum, emanated from within my body. That was the sign of the biological nuclear reactor, instantly ramping up its power. The row of stegosaurus-like dorsal fins on my back suddenly lit up starting from the tail. A blinding, eerie blue light. The light surged upward like a flowing river, finally converging at my throat. The next second, I opened my abyssal maw. A beam less than 1 meter in diameter. A beam of pure, eerie blue plasma, like a grim reaper's scythe capable of slicing through space, silently cutting through the sky. There was no earth-shattering explosion. 10 kilometers away, that multi-thousand-ton steel target ship, the moment it was touched by the beam, starting from the center of the ship, it silently vaporized and dissolved. The heavy armored steel, like butter under a scorching sun, melted into glowing red molten iron, then, under the terrifying heat, instantly vaporized into gas. The whole process lasted less than 3 seconds. The beam extinguished. The sea surface was empty. Not even a palm-sized piece of wreckage from that target ship, or a single drop of leaked fuel remained, as if it had never existed. At this moment, everyone in the cabin felt a chill. What sent shivers down their spines was that not a single drop of seawater had splashed around the ship. The surface was smooth as a mirror. This is impossible. Chun Jingshan gripped the cabin door frame tightly. His eyes were nearly popping out. His voice was cracking. How could an energy discharge have no aftershock? He locked thousands of degrees of heat and terrifying impact entirely within that single beam. This level of control was precise to the millimeter. This level of power control meant this behemoth could operate in a densely populated city center with surgical precision, without damaging a single nearby house. This was no longer the destruction of a beast, but the mastery of a god. I floated back into the seawater, exhaling a breath of scorching white vapor. I looked up at the helicopter. Can we talk about the intel now? Lin Jianjun remained silent for 5 full seconds. Then this battle hardened. Iron-blooded general slowly raised his right hand. He gave a salute to the colossus below, a standard and solemn military salute. Longua accepts your defection. The negotiations officially began. Over the next hour, this life-and-death meeting across species progressed rapidly above the waves. I hid nothing. Using low-frequency sound waves, I poured out everything I knew about the void beasts, as if emptying a bag of beans. The beasts arriving in 30 days are not ordinary carbon-based lifeforms, but silicon-based predators that feed on planetary cores. My voice was heavy and cold, carrying a trace of sorrow for the tragic deaths of my comrades in a past life. They have no pain receptors. Their shells are durable enough to be immune to 90% of your current conventional artillery. Their bodily fluids are highly corrosive. Once they splatter on a land battlefield, they will instantly melt the composite armor of heavy tanks. The negotiators recorded frantically, their fingers twitching. Every piece of information weighed a ton. Do not attempt to use nuclear weapons. For large-scale carpet bombing, I continued, the heat from nuclear blasts can indeed kill low-level beasts, but the remaining radiation will instead become evolutionary fuel for high-level Lord-class beasts. In my previous life, humans abused nuclear weapons during the early collapse of the defense line, spawning a massive number of mutated Lord beasts, which led to the total collapse of the final line of defense. I shared the keynotes, where the human defenses failed in the previous life, the attack formations of the beast swarms, and the fatal physiological weaknesses hidden beneath their hard carapaces. Without reservation, their energy centers are in the neck, within the gap of the third carapace plate. Developing high-frequency vibration weapons for this spot, or armor-piercing delayed fuses, is your only chance. As I spoke, a desperate vision of the apocalypse slowly unfolded before them, but simultaneously a clear path of blood and fire to break the deadlock emerged. The fuel alarm on the helicopter began to flash. The meeting was drawing to a close. Lin Jianjun stood straight, looking at me on the sea with resolute eyes. He made the final strategic commitment. From this day forward, both parties officially enter a partnership. Lin Jianjun's voice was powerful and ringing. Every word carried weight. Longua will mobilize national strategic reserves to provide you with absolute security and unlimited energy supplies. Academician Chun Jingshan's research team will fully mobilize to provide you with top-tier evolutionary support. He paused. His tone became incredibly solemn. In exchange, you must cooperate with the state to complete the defensive deployment of the coastline. The 1.4 billion compatriots of Longua and this long coastline are in your hands from this day on. I nodded slightly in the water. My gaze pierced through the clouds, looking toward East Sea City. There were towering TV towers, dense residential buildings, and countless ordinary people struggling for a living. That was the hometown I failed to protect in my previous life. Keep me fed, and I'll hold up the sky if it falls. As a behemoth, and as a former worker of Longua's military industry, I gave my word. That afternoon, as Lin Jianjun returned, the sleeping Eastern Dragon fully awakened. Documents stamped with top secret flowed like a river to every corner of the country. Output power from coastal nuclear plants was forcibly adjusted. Heavy armored transports loaded with high-purity enriched uranium and specially encapsulated blocks under heavy military escort marched out of the underground warehouses in a grand procession, speeding toward the East Sea Security Zone. The Blue Star Defense Plan officially commenced at this moment. Meanwhile, at the highest center of power in Longwa. Inside the strategic defense room 300 meters underground, the air seemed to have solidified, making it suffocatingly heavy. Around a massive oval conference table sat the supreme commanders of the Navy, Army, and Air Force, along with several cabinet members controlling the nation's economy and energy lifelines. On the screens before each person, the classified footage from a few hours ago played on loop of a 100-meter behemoth on the East Sea, using a single plasma breath to vaporize thousands of tons of target ships. Lin Jianjun stood at the head of the table. This is the complete assessment report. Lin Jianjun leaned his hands on the table, his gaze sweeping across the room like a blade. Target codename Lin Yi possesses full human intelligence, nuclear physics knowledge centuries ahead of our own, and terrifying combat power enough to take on a modern carrier strike group single-handedly. General Lin, this is absurd. An Energy Department official on the left frowned deeply, pushing up the glasses on the bridge of his nose to feed a prehistoric monster of unknown origin, using national strategic nuclear reserves and even military-grade enriched uranium, shipped from the Great Northwest. If it loses control after absorbing that energy and turns on us, the entire eastern coast will become a nuclear wasteland. Longwa cannot afford this risk. If we don't feed it, can we afford that instead? Lin Jianjun interrupted him bluntly. He grabbed the red-headed document that the intelligence department had fought desperately to verify and slammed it onto the table. A 3.2 magnitude earthquake in the Taklamakan Desert, accurate to the decimal. In Nevada, across the ocean, the core parameters of underground nuclear tests were precise to 4 decimal places. This is top-secret intel that we spent an untold price and still couldn't obtain. He just tossed it to us like it was trash. Lin Jianjun's voice gradually rose, carrying the iron-blooded resolve of a veteran general. He has already given us the countdown to death. In 27 days, the Mariana Trench will welcome the first wave of alien silicon-based life. Their shells can ignore 90% of conventional artillery. If this intel is true, this will be a one-sided slaughter to extinct humanity. We aren't making a venture capital investment right now. We are clutching at a straw while hanging off a cliff. And he is willing to be the guardian of Longwa's gates. The only condition is that it's fed. This is Longwa's fortune. The conference room fell into a deathly silence. The old man sitting at the head, who had been resting with his eyes closed, slowly opened them. He didn't look at the documents on the table, but gazed deeply at Lin Jianjun. Jianjun, you guarantee it with that uniform of yours. Is it controllable? The old man's voice wasn't loud, yet it carried an unshakable, grounding power. Lin Jianjun snapped to attention, his heels clicking together with a sharp crack. He gave the most perfect military salute. I stake my life on it. The blood of a Longwa soldier flows in its veins. The old man nodded slightly, his withered yet powerful fingers tapping twice lightly on the table. Those 2 taps sealed the deal, deciding the future fate of the Blue Star. The state machinery is fully activated. The old man's tone was calm, but the orders were like thunder from the heavens. From this moment on, a 50-kilometer radius around Donghai City, the coastline is designated as Zone 0. Complete the evacuation and resettlement of residents within 24 hours. Second, authorize the Ministry of Energy and Ministry of Military Industry, immediately open the Northwest Strategic Nuclear Arsenal, allocate the first batch of 300 kilograms of enriched uranium cores and the high-level radioactive waste just decommissioned from Jiangnan nuclear plant. Third, Academician Chen Jingshan will lead the establishment of the National Totem Research Task Force. Mobilize the entire nation's resources to ensure the beast's energy intake and purification monitoring. Anyone who dares to bicker or drag their feet at this critical juncture will be charged with high treason. Night fell, the rain pouring down in sheets. Outside the Jiangnan nuclear power plant, warning lights flashed. An entire mechanized infantry regiment had the area completely sealed off. A guard every 3 steps, a sentry every 5. Every single weapon was loaded and ready. Several attack helicopters in the sky patrolled back and forth through the storm. The beams of searchlights in the curtain of rain wove together into a tight, impenetrable net. Deep within the underground core of the plant, several heavy engineering mechs were carefully hoisting those canisters emitting high-intensity radiation, the nuclear waste containers. Academician Chen Jingshan, wearing a heavy anti-radiation suit, stood on the front line supervising personally. He held a specialized tactical tablet, the screen displaying a blueprint of a strange, giant metal capsule. Elder Chen, the lead titanium alloy encapsulation canisters, were rushed through production at the military plant overnight. The outer shell is 80 centimeters thick, capable of withstanding water pressure at 1,000 meters deep. A senior engineer, wiping the sweat from his forehead, reported, but can Lin Yi really swallow this armored shell along with it? This is titanium alloy. Even a heavy-duty shredder would lose a few teeth. Through his anti-radiation mask, Chun Jingshan stared intently at those canisters of lethal nuclear waste, his eyes flashing with a nearly manic scientific passion. You have no idea what kind of existence we are dealing with. Elder Chen's voice trembled with excitement. During the negotiations this afternoon, I collected water samples from its surroundings. While on the helicopter, guess what? After it fired a 3,000-degree plasma beam, the radioactive isotope content in the surrounding seawater was actually 0. Chun Jingshan grabbed the engineer's arm. Do you know what that means? It means its entire stomach, even every single cell, is a miniature, absolutely closed-loop nuclear fusion reactor. Its digestive juices aren't some carbonic or oxalic acid, but a super high-frequency strong acid that can melt metal and extract atomic energy. Wrapping it in titanium alloy is like us eating the rice paper wrapper on a piece of candy. It melts instantly. The engineer gasped, his scalp tingling with dread. Move fast. Don't worry about wasting materials. Reinforce it to the absolute limit. There cannot be a single leak along the way. We must deliver this food clean and intact into its feeding bowl. Chun Jingshan roared, waving his arms. 3 hours later, a 60-car-long, matte black, heavy armored military train, like a giant steel python, slowly pulled out of the secret platform at Jiangnan nuclear plant. At the front and rear of the train were 2 high-horsepower internal combustion locomotives. Anti-aircraft missiles and CIWS were mounted on the roof. Every 100 meters along the tracks, a soldier stood rigidly in the rain, weapon loaded, paying tribute to this train laden with the nation's hope and the power of annihilation. Meanwhile, in the far northwest, several massive transport aircraft tore through the clouds under the cover of night. Inside, Longgua's most elite special forces guarded the transport of 300 kilograms of military-grade enriched uranium. Land, sea, and air advanced in unison. Countless resources, countless manpower, all in a frenzied manner that defied the common laws of economics, converging toward East Sea Zone 0. This blatant, large-scale, military mobilization and nuclear material transfer naturally could not be hidden from the foreign spy satellites, hanging in Earth's orbit. Across the ocean, in the Pentagon's underground strategic command center, a piercing red alarm shattered the silence of the night. The intelligence officer on duty scrambled frantically into the secretary's office, slamming a report stamped top secret onto Secretary of Defense Williams' desk. Mr. Secretary, Longua has gone mad. The officer's voice was cracking. The Prometheus infrared satellite just captured an extremely rare, strategic level mass transfer of nuclear materials within Longua. They've deployed heavy armored trains and strategic transports to move massive quantities of enriched uranium and nuclear waste to the East Seacoast. Williams, who had been sipping coffee to stay awake, jerked his wrist, spilling the scalding coffee directly onto his expensive handmade suit. He bolted upright, snatching the satellite images. Though obscured by thick rain clouds in the photos, thermal imaging and radiation detection still clearly revealed several glaring red, high-energy heat sources, converging at high speed toward Longgua's East Seaport. What are they doing? Are they planning to detonate the East Sea and take the neighboring countries down with them? Williams grit his teeth, a flicker of terror and ruthlessness in his eyes. Or have they secretly built some kind of supermassive underwater nuclear platform? Not only that, Mr. Secretary, the officer added, swallowing hard. The main force of Longgua's East Sea Fleet has fully departed. At the edge of international waters, 50 nautical miles from the coast, they've established a blockade spanning hundreds of kilometers. All approaching civilian vessels have been forcibly expelled. Their radar systems are in full-power fire control lock state. Williams paced the office like a restless, raging lion, countless conspiracy theories flashing through his mind. He couldn't possibly imagine why Longua was making such a massive scene, even risking an accidental spark that could ignite World War III, just to feed a monster in the ocean. In the logic of the Anglo-Saxons, such a costly mobilization of nuclear materials means only one thing: war. We cannot let them succeed. No matter what secret weapon they've hidden beneath the East China Sea, it must be nipped in the bud. Williams stopped abruptly, slamming his fist onto the desk. Connect me to the 7th Fleet Command immediately. Order the 3 Seawolf class nuclear attack submarines patrolling near Guam to dive immediately, switch off active sonar, and at maximum stealth speed, penetrate the Dragon Nation's East China Sea blockade zone. Tell those captains, I want to know exactly what the Dragon Nation has dumped into the sea. If necessary, they are authorized to use special torpedoes for probing attacks. The United States will absolutely not allow the strategic balance of the Pacific to be shattered. At Williams' command, in the darkness of the deep ocean, several nuclear submarines, like deep-sea ghosts, slowly shifted their course. Like sharks smelling blood, they closed in on the East China Sea in silence. Zero zone. Zero zone. The East China Sea at this moment.
Zero zone. Forbidden area O.
At the edge of the continental shelf, 300 meters deep, I lay quietly in ambush within a deep trench. The surrounding water was bone-chillingly cold, but it couldn't extinguish the increasingly frantic hunger within me. A massive body 100 meters tall requires an immense amount of energy just to maintain basic metabolism, let alone accumulating the foundation for the evolution that is about to come. I closed my eyes, and my vast psychic power extended through the water. I could clearly feel on the surface above the steel warships of the Dragon Nation's East Sea Fleet, shuttling back and forth through the raging storm. In my past life, I was just an obscure military technician, earning a meager salary, going bald from overworking in the lab. Then, when the apocalypse arrived, I couldn't even get a decent gun, watching in despair as monsters tore through the defense lines. But now, I am a 100-meter behemoth, capable of manipulating nuclear energy. More importantly, my keen hearing had captured a signal from the distant coastline, the kind of low-frequency vibration that only occurs when heavy military trains grind against the rails, a deep, pulsing tremor. That was the sound of tens of thousands of tons of steel, carrying massive amounts of nuclear fuel, rolling toward me. The state didn't lie to me. For the sake of my request for food, this incredibly massive state machine really hauled out all its bottom-of-the-barrel strategic reserves. Come to me. I slowly straightened my body in the dim trench, fully prepared. Once this energy is in my belly, I can finally cross the threshold of infancy and welcome my first true genetic restructuring. Rain poured relentlessly over the East Seaport. The entire port had been placed under total military control. Within a 50-kilometer radius, 3 layers of highest-level red alert lines were drawn. No civilian vessel dared approach these waters. 3 AWACS aircraft circled in the sky, staring intently at every suspicious signal. On the radar screens, a feeding operation unprecedented in human history was unfolding with great intensity. Along the storm-lashed coastline, the rumble of the rails tore through the roar of the rainy night. A heavy armored military train 60 cars long, like a black steel python, slowly slid into the core area of the port. Lin Jianjun, clad in a black waterproof raincoat, stood like an iron tower amidst the wind and rain. Rain streamed down his resolute cheeks, but he didn't reach out to wipe it, only staring fixedly at the massive lead-gray metal canisters, being unloaded one by heavy tower cranes. Reporting to the commander-in-chief, a major, soaked to the bone, ran through the puddles to Lin Jianjun and shouted loudly, "The first batch of supplies has arrived." A total of 12 specially made high-density lead titanium alloy canisters, filled with high-level nuclear waste, recently decommissioned from the Jiangnan nuclear plant, and 300 kilograms of military-grade enriched uranium, urgently transferred from the Great Northwest. Lin Jianjun nodded slightly, his eyes burning like torches. Is Elder Chun ready? Academician Chen's monitoring vessel has reached the edge of the designated sea area. Deep-sea sonar and high-frequency thermal imagers are at full power. Good. Lin Jianjun waved his hand sharply, his voice ringing out through the storm. Hoist them. Drop them into the sea. With a deafening mechanical roar, 12 lead titanium alloy canisters, each weighing dozens of tons, were slowly lifted by the giant crane. Crossing over the breakwater, they crashed heavily into the deep water, where ink-black waves were churning. Massive plumes of water shot into the sky. Under the pull of gravity, the multi-ton canisters plummeted rapidly toward the deep, dark seabed. Now, at the edge of the continental shelf, 300 meters below the surface. Finally, they're here. I slowly rose from the seabed, my massive body displacing tens of thousands of tons of water, triggering a turbid and violent undercurrent. I looked up, and with my powerful hind legs, I kicked off the seabed rock with a sudden burst. Like a black heavy-duty torpedo, I surged upward toward the sinking canisters. I extended my massive foreclaws, covered in black barbs, and precisely snatched from the water a plummeting lead titanium alloy canister. To humans, this thing is an indestructible, top-secret container, but in my grip, it was no different from a hard candy wrapped in a sugar foil. Without a moment's hesitation, I stuffed that several-meter-long metal canister into my abyss-like maw of fangs. My jaws slammed shut. Crunch, the ear-splitting sound of shattering metal, exploded through the deep sea, a titanium shell capable of withstanding deep-sea pressure, and conventional artillery bombardment, was instantly crushed into a heap of twisted scrap by Godzilla's terrifying bite force. Intense, high-strength radioactive material, along with bitter seawater, surged into my mouth. This horror, which could cause an adult human's cells to collapse entirely within seconds, turning them into a pool of bloody water, was to me the sweetest nectar in the entire world. With a loud gulp, I swallowed the mixture of metal shards and nuclear fuel into my belly. 3 seconds after swallowing, the long-dormant biological nuclear reactor in my body was as if doused in high-octane aviation fuel, instantly ignited. An indescribable, terrifying heat erupted from my stomach, rushing frantically through my thick blood vessels and neural networks to every single cell. I let out a low, satisfying growl, and the surrounding water shaken by the sonic wave, began to churn and boil violently. Without pause, my foreclaws swept again and again, gathering the remaining 11 canisters into my embrace. Like eating roasted beans, I tossed them into my mouth one by one, chewing, swallowing, and absorbing. Above the sea surface, on a military monitoring ship 5 kilometers from the feeding point, academician Chun Jingshan was staring intently at the multiple data screens before him, his breathing heavy and ragged like a broken bellows, hands braced against the control console, knuckles turning a deathly gray from the grip. Elder Chun, the seabed radiation index is skyrocketing exponentially. A technician stared at the Geiger counter, his voice trembling. The value has breached the critical point 40.625, still rising. 40.625, still climbing. My God, this area of the sea is about to become a dead sea. Don't panic. Keep your eyes on the thermal imaging and bioelectric feedback. Chun Jingshan roared, his eyes locked onto another, red curve on the screen. Just as the technician thought the nuclear leak was irreversible in the next second, the frantically jumping numbers on the Geiger counter were suddenly struck by an invisible giant hammer, plummeting instantly in a cliff-like drop. The final value came to a dead stop at the normal background radiation level of the ocean. Inside the entire monitoring cabin, there was a deathly silence. Only the heavy panting of the crew could be heard. It absorbed it. Chun Jingshan's voice was incredibly hoarse, yet it carried an irrepressible fervor. Not a single drop leaked out. The stomach wall of this behemoth, or rather its entire internal circulation system, is an absolutely perfect microscopic particle capture net. It has forcibly locked all the radioactive isotopes inside its own reactor. Look at the heat map. Another technician suddenly stood up, pointing at the central large screen. On the holographic projection, a blindingly white orb of light appeared, 300 meters deep in the ocean. The temperature of that orb was soaring, at a speed that defied the laws of thermodynamics. The surrounding seawater was instantly heated to boiling, yet under the immense water pressure, could not immediately turn into steam, forming an eerie high-temperature, high-pressure water sphere. It's evolving. Chun Jingshan took off his glasses, rubbing his bloodshot eyes, his tone laced with a hint of awe. This is no longer within the simple realm of biology. Longwa has truly raised a god. Right now, I am undergoing a bone-deep transformation. The massive energy provided by 12 canisters of highly concentrated nuclear fuel unleashed a storm at the cellular level within my body. I could clearly feel my original skeleton being crushed inch by the violent energy, then fusing and regrowing with higher density. Those scales, which were originally dark-colored and hard, began to shed in large areas, replaced by newly grown plates shimmering with a cold, metallic luster of deep ink-black heavy armor, a soul-tearing agony. But I gritted my teeth, without letting out a single scream. The memories of my past life, witnessing my kin being torn apart by alien beast tides, were like a red-hot branding iron, searing deep into my nerves. Compared to the pain of a civilization's collapse, this physical evolution and reshaping was nothing at all. Absorb it all, I roared in my mind. I proactively severed the feedback of my pain nerves, concentrating all my mental strength on controlling the violent nuclear energy within me. I guided this energy, flushing through the jagged row of dorsal fins on my back. My juvenile frame, originally only 50 or 60 meters tall, under the infusion of ample energy, began to tower upward frantically. Muscle fibers, like stretched steel cables, became thicker and tougher. Every contraction of every muscle contained terrifying kinetic energy, enough to demolish a skyscraper. 60 meters, 80 meters, 100 meters, 120 meters. For 2 whole hours, I completed a metamorphosis in the deep sea that could be called a miracle. When I opened my eyes again, those vertical pupils had changed from their original dark gold into a color that carried an extreme sense of oppression, a dark red. I slowly straightened my body, the row of brand new, sharp dorsal fins on my back, like the plates of a stegosaurus, emitted a heart-stopping, eerie blue fluorescence in the dim depths. I felt the nuclear energy within me, filling me to the point of overflowing. Satisfied, I flicked my tail, which had grown thicker, with sharp bone spikes now protruding from the tip. This feast allowed me to leap past the juvenile stage, entering the early stage of the growth period ahead of schedule. Now, if I were to face that multi-thousand-ton target ship again, I wouldn't even need to use my atomic breath. Raw physical strength alone would be enough to tear it in half. While this epic evolution was taking place, in the depths of the East China Sea, in an underground command center across the ocean, the atmosphere had dropped to freezing. The Pentagon, Joint Intelligence Agency Monitoring Hall, piercing red alarm sounded. Without warning, echoing frantically through the hall. On the giant electronic world map, a crimson, blinding coordinate point lit up. At the location of Longgua's East China Sea, Sir, the Prometheus infrared warning satellite has just captured an abnormal high-energy reaction. A blonde intelligence analyst, fingers flying across the keyboard, forced a set of thermal imaging frames to enlarge on the main screen. Coordinate: East China Sea, Longwa. Depth, 300 meters. The core temperature of the heat source has exceeded the conventional monitoring limit. This is absolutely not any known model of nuclear submarine. A stern, elderly white man strode to the screen. His brow furrowed deeply. He stared at the heat source expanding in the deep sea, cold sweat beading on his forehead. Undersea volcanic eruption? Or a precursor to an earthquake? The general's voice was terrifyingly grim. No, the analyst swallowed hard. The heat source shows an extremely regular pulsing beat, like the heartbeat of some giant creature. Furthermore, the main force of Longwa's East Sea Fleet completely blockaded that area 2 hours ago and implemented a high-level radio silence. They deployed a large number of high-density lead containers into the sea. The general's pupils suddenly contracted. A hair-raising suspicion took shape in his mind. Longwa is conducting some kind of illegal undersea nuclear test, or they are creating some new type of deep-sea space weapon. The general slammed his fist onto the console and roared, "Connect me to the 7th Fleet Command immediately. Order the nearest nuclear submarine to close in for reconnaissance. I want to know exactly what the hell the Longwa people are doing beneath the East Sea." A few minutes later, deep in the ocean, a Seawolf-class nuclear attack submarine, like a deep-sea ghost, silently deactivated its active sonar, relying on its passive detection system, like a sinister viper, slowly closing in on the edge of the East Sea blockade zone. They wanted to steal Longwa's deep-sea secrets, but what they didn't know was that in this region that had just undergone evolution, any tiny mechanical noise, in my evolved, freakish auditory system, was as glaring as a searchlight in the dead of night. Having just completed my evolution on the seabed, I was preparing to send a feeding complete signal to Lin Jianjun on the surface. Suddenly, I sensed it, about 20 nautical miles away. A faint, yet distinctly man-made industrial noise of a propeller cavitation noise was quietly drifting through the water toward me. In my past life, I was a nuclear industry technician. I know the acoustic signatures of every nuclear submarine model like the back of my hand. This isn't the sound of the Dragon Country fleet. It's a classic Seawolf class from across the ocean, sneaking around to spy on me while I was eating. I sneered inwardly. I've just completed the first stage of evolution. My body is overflowing with energy. I was just looking for a place to unleash this violent urge for destruction. I didn't surface. Instead, I gave my tail a powerful lash. My massive body tore through the seabed, creating a violent white current, like a bolt of black lightning, hugging the continental shelf, charging at full speed toward that stealthily approaching nuclear submarine. Above the surface, inside Lin Jianjun's command ship, "Commander, report from the sonar room. Unidentified submarine signal detected 20 nautical miles to the southeast. Acoustic signature confirmed. It's a foreign Seawolf class." The staff officer reported, his face pale with anger. "The enemy is attempting to enter our sonar blind spot to collect data." Lin Jianjun's eyes turned cold. A sudden aura of killing intent erupted. He grabbed the communicator. "Order the anti-submarine helicopters to take off immediately. Force it to the surface. Conducting espionage on the edge of Dragon Country's territorial waters. Do they think our cannons are just for show? Wait! Commander!" The sonar operator suddenly let out a terrified scream. In the target area, a terrifying underwater noise has appeared. It's too fast. It's exceeded 80 knots. It's Lin Yi. He's charging straight at that nuclear submarine. Lin Jianjun was stunned. An underwater speed of 80 knots. This completely exceeds the limits of any human submersible. In the deep sea, inside the sonar compartment of the Seawolf-class submarine, the air, previously silent due to stealth mode, was instantly shredded by a piercing red alarm. "Captain, giant unidentified underwater target appearing dead ahead. Speed is extreme. 80 knots, 90 knots. My God, it's a moving underwater mountain." The sonar operator looked at the screen, where the red shadow almost filled the entire detection sector. The red shadow screamed in despair. The captain gripped the handrail tightly, his eyes wide with terror. "Hard to port. Emergency surface. Now. Launch all decoys." But it was all too late. Within the beams of the submarine's external searchlights, I arrived with an overwhelming surge of water pressure, crashing violently into their field of vision. My 100-meter-long body braked sharply in the water. I didn't smash the submarine directly. After all, that would trigger a diplomatic earthquake. That wouldn't align with my goal of being backed by my country. But I had to give these unwelcome guests a lesson they'd never forget. I opened my abyss like maw. The hidden gill slits on my neck vibrated violently. I didn't use my atomic breath. Instead, I combined high-pressure air from my lungs with the vibration of my vocal cords. Within an extremely short distance, I released a directional, high-frequency infrasonic blast. The invisible infrasound was like an invisible giant hammer, slamming hard against the submarine's pressure hull. The lights inside the Seawolf-class submarine instantly shattered. All electronic instruments crashed and sparked with fire. The crew covered their ears, collapsing on the deck, bleeding from every orifice and rolling in agony. Although the submarine's hull didn't rupture, the internal control systems were completely paralyzed, like a piece of scrap metal, floating helplessly toward the surface. After doing all this, I didn't even spare another glance at the paralyzed submarine. Turning around, I swam toward the Dragon Country fleet. A few minutes later, accompanied by a massive splash on the East China Sea, my massive head, clad in brand new deep ink scales, slowly broke the surface. My dorsal fin flickered with a cold, soul-piercing ghostly blue light in the rainy night. Lin Jianjun stood on the ship's deck, enduring the battering of the storm, staring intently at the behemoth less than 100 meters away. He could clearly feel it. The giant beast before him was more terrifying and destructive than it was a few hours ago. A familiar ripple of distortion suddenly appeared in the air. My deep, metallic voice vibrated once more in Lin Jianjun's ear via low-frequency sound waves. The meal was delicious. I'm full. My gaze locked onto Lin Jianjun. My voice carried an unquestionable chill and killing intent. Calculating the time, the arrival coordinates for the first batch of rift beasts are almost here. Point me in the right direction. I've got work to do. Meanwhile, in the strategic conference room deep beneath the Pentagon, harsh, cold white fluorescent lights hit the conference table. A massive holographic projector hung from the center of the ceiling, looping a piece of satellite footage. The turbulent East China Sea surface. A 200-meter-tall dark beast erupted from the water, its dorsal fin flashing with a chilling ghostly blue electric light. A casual swipe of its thick tail triggered a small-scale tsunami on the surface. That was the footage from my first controlled evolution 2 days ago. Williams stood before the hologram, hands leaning on the table. In those blue eyes sunken deep into his sockets, burned an undisguised passion and jealousy. He stared intently at the beast in the image, as if looking at a gold mine overflowing with wealth. Gentlemen, open your eyes and look. This is no savior to fend off aliens. This is the ultimate biological weapon bestowed upon humanity by God. Dragon Country's total mobilization and the growth rate of that monster have severely disrupted the global strategic balance. If we let them continue feeding it, in less than a month, our hegemony in the Pacific will be completely shattered. On both sides of the conference table, 10 high-ranking military officials and suits-wearing politicians looked at each other. A senator frowned and tapped the table. Mr. Secretary, Dragon Country has already issued a warning about the alien invasion, provoking this beast that claims to fight alien threats right now. Isn't that a bit ill-timed? Foolish. Williams snapped his head around, baring his fangs like a hyena guarding its kill. The alien threat won't arrive for another 18 days. That is a problem for all of humanity. Not just our problem, but if Dragon Country monopolizes the genetic origin of this beast, that will be our true doomsday. On the surface, our goal is to eliminate the monster threat, but in reality, it's to seize its genetic origin, to build our own invincible fleet. Williams straightened up and snapped his fingers. The image on the holographic screen switched instantly, becoming a massive operational plan stamped top secret. I have already drafted a perfect capture plan codenamed Whale Hunt, and I convinced those old fossils in Congress this morning. A cold curve formed at the corner of Williams' mouth. His eyes were sinister. This plan is divided into 3 phases. Phase 1. We will deploy 3 Nimitz-class nuclear-powered aircraft carriers, along with a joint fleet of dozens of destroyers and cruisers, heading straight for Dragon Country's East China Sea. The fleet will be fully equipped with specialized cryo-shells. These cryo-shells can create an absolute temperature of minus 200 degrees of absolute cold, enough to completely freeze that beast's mobility from the front. Upon hearing about the 3 aircraft carriers, the naval generals present felt their breathing quicken. This was the largest naval force assembled in the West Pacific since the end of the Cold War. The second phase. Williams sneered, continuing to play his cards. 3 nuclear submarine squadrons had already infiltrated the deep waters of the East Sea. They weren't carrying conventional torpedoes, but a specialized gene-suppressing virus developed specifically for the beast's cellular structure. Once the freezing shells hit, the submarine fleet would immediately inject the virus. Even in the worst-case scenario, if the capture failed, the nuclear warheads aboard the submarines could send the beast and the Dragon Nation's coastline straight to heaven. As for the third phase, Williams lowered his voice, like a spitting viper. I have activated all CIA sleeper agents within the Dragon Nation, secretly colluding with those greedy extremists in their domestic opposition. Once the war starts, these oppositionists will create public panic and sabotage in the Dragon Nation's rear. An inside-outside pincer attack. Even if the plan hits a snag, we can firmly pin the blame for starting the war on those oppositionists and the beast going out of control. The entire plan was interlocking, sinister and ruthless. A naval admiral stood up, his gaze cold. What if the Dragon Nation's military intervenes by force during the capture? Then we fight. Williams slammed both hands onto the table, his eyes flashing with a desperate, manic intensity. Pass my order. As long as we capture the beast, I don't care if a conflict erupts in the East Sea. All forces, move out. Over 10 hours later, in the vast expanse of the Central Pacific, 3 massive carrier strike groups were sailing at a top speed of 30 knots, cutting through the deep blue waves, like 3 giant gray warhammers, charging toward the Dragon Nation's East Sea with murderous intent. In the sky, dense formations of carrier-based fighter jets were taking off and landing. Radar waves unscrupulously swept the airspace for hundreds of nautical miles. They believed their plan was flawless. However, they had no idea what level of existence the evolved Godzilla actually was. At that moment, in a deep-sea rift 800 meters down, I was lying quietly on a flat rock bed, resting my eyes. After completing the first controlled evolution, my height had already surpassed 200 meters. The surface of my originally dark scales now had a layer of obsidian-like, indestructible keratin. Suddenly, my dark red vertical pupils snapped open in the dim depths. This was a mystical, ultra-long-range sensory ability. With the surge in size and the purification of nuclear energy, I could now not only hear faint sound waves from thousands of miles away, but directly perceive abnormal physical vibrations carried by the ocean currents. In my sensory world, the normally calm water molecules in the Central Pacific were being forcibly pushed aside by million-ton steel monstrosities, creating a faint but chaotic array of infrasonic waves. Accompanying this was the low-frequency resonance unique to nuclear submarine reactors operating deep beneath the sea. 3 surface behemoths of 100,000 tons each, and a dozen iron loaches hiding underwater. I sneered in the depths, my thick tail irritably slapping the seabed rock. Pure madness. Coming here to seek death. The alien beast vanguard will arrive in less than 10 days. Instead of building air raid shelters, these politicians across the ocean are pointing their guns at the very meat shield standing at the front. This extreme level of stupidity and infighting made me, who still retained human memories, feel physically nauseous. Without a moment's hesitation, I mobilized the abundant bioelectric energy in my body, converting my mental power into a special encrypted electromagnetic pulse signal. This was a new ability unlocked after evolution, letting me bid farewell to the primitive era of slapping the water for Morse code. Old Lin, wake up, works here, thousands of miles away. In the underground command hall of the Eastern Theater Command, Lin Jianjun was holding a cup of strong tea, standing before a massive tactical map, simulating the upcoming defensive formation. The sudden deep voice with a strong metallic texture echoing in his mind made his wrist jerk, nearly spilling the scalding tea onto his military uniform. He quickly set down the cup, pressed the communicator in his ear, and walked to an unmanned encrypted terminal. Lin Yi, what happened? The bald eagles from across the ocean are flying over. 3 full carrier strike groups, led by Nimitz-class carriers, with Los Angeles-class nuclear submarines providing cover underwater. Fully armed, heading straight for the East Sea Security Zone. My voice was as calm as a weather forecast, but the content was enough to trigger World War III. They carry a scent of chemical agents that makes me very uncomfortable. I doubt they're up to anything good. Intelligence synced to you. Handle it however you see fit. Lin Jianjun's expression instantly darkened, like the night sky before a storm. They're practically begging for death. This battle-hardened Iron General slammed his palm onto the alloy table, creating a loud bang. The entire command hall fell silent instantly. All staff officers stopped their work, turning in terror toward the commander-in-chief. The blade of the alien beast tide was already hanging over all of humanity's necks, yet these politicians were still fighting and launching sneak attacks for immediate gain. Lin Jianjun strode back to the main console, shouting sternly, "Sound the Level 1 combat alert. All units of the East Sea Fleet, weigh anchor and depart immediately. Proceed at full speed to the territorial waters for defense. Coastal missile brigades, enter launch countdown state. Simultaneously connect to the High Command. Issue the sternest diplomatic warning to the U.S. Take all evidence of their deliberate provocation collected by intelligence, package it all, and submit it to the UN. Make a huge scene out of this." With Lin Jianjun's successive orders, this massive war machine of the Eastern Theater Command, it let out a deafening roar in an instant. Just 3 hours later, dark clouds gathered over the East Sea territorial line. The sea breeze was laced with the pungent smell of diesel and the killing aura of gunpowder. The main destroyers and frigates of the Dragon Nation's East Sea Fleet were lined up like a great wall of steel, stretching across the turbulent sea. All radars were operating at overload, and all missile silo covers were open, and on the horizon less than 50 nautical miles ahead of them, thick masts of warships pierced through the sea fog. The 3 massive U.S. carriers were like mobile sea fortresses, surrounded by dozens of escort ships, with an insufferable arrogance, crushing the waves as they approached. The 2 top naval forces of humanity stood in direct opposition in these waters, muzzles pointed at each other, only 0.1 millimeters away from a spark triggering a fire. "You are entering Dragon Nation territorial waters. Please turn and withdraw immediately, otherwise we will use force to defend our sovereignty." The loudspeakers on the main destroyer broadcast the stern warning in a loop in both Chinese and English. However, the massive fleet opposite seemed deaf, their speed not decreasing in the slightest. Inside the flagship command center of the U.S. Joint Fleet, Williams held a glass of red wine, looking at the dense red dots on the radar screen. screen, his face full of arrogant certainty. The Dragon Nation's reaction was fast, but in the face of 3 fully armed carrier strike groups, it still seemed somewhat thin. Minister, the Dragon Nation has submitted a protest to the UN, and some opposing voices have appeared in our domestic public opinion. Do we still proceed? The captain asked, wiping cold sweat from his forehead. The UN? That's nothing more than a noisy marketplace. As long as we bring back that beast's genes, all protests will turn into praise. Williams sneered, drains the red wine in his glass. A flash of ruthlessness crosses his eyes. Since they dare to stand in the way, let's show them what we're made of. Order the Vanguard ship to fire warning shots at the Dragon Country's outer patrol boats. Let them know who truly rules these seas. A few seconds later, a large caliber shell tears through the air with a piercing shriek, slamming precisely less than 50 meters in front of a small Dragon Country patrol boat on the sea surface. A towering pillar of water mixed with shrapnel crashes violently onto the patrol boat's deck. The provocation is absolute. Report. Enemy ship crossed the line and fired first, requesting permission to return fire. Inside the Dragon Country destroyer, the fire control radar operator roars with bloodshot eyes. In the command hall, Lin Jianjun stares intently at the images from the front line, his chest heaving violently, but he doesn't give the order to fire immediately. He is a master strategist. He is waiting for the behemoth to be in position, seeing the Dragon Country fleet not fighting back. William's arrogance grows. He turns to the weapon console and swings his arm down sharply. First attack wave. Prepare. Cryo-shells loaded. Lock onto the thermal source beneath the East Sea security zone. He can almost see that arrogant monster frozen into a giant block of ice, crushed beneath his feet. But what he doesn't know is, in the dark depths less than 5 nautical miles from his flagship, a pair of giant, dark red vertical pupils are peering through the deep water, coldly watching this swaggering command ship. My massive body is like a dormant volcano. Within the gaps of the scales on my back, a ghostly blue nuclear glow is compressing and swirling frantically. The array is set. Now is the time for the hunt. On the East Sea maritime border, winds cut like knives and waves rage. Heavy black clouds press down on the sea like slabs of lead. The air is thick with the pungent smell of diesel, gunpowder, and a chilling aura of death that makes one's skin crawl. You are entering Dragon Country territorial waters. Turn back and leave immediately, or we will use force to defend our sovereignty. The loudspeakers blast the final ultimatum in Chinese and English. On the horizon, 3 U.S. Nimitz-class nuclear aircraft carriers are like 3 mobile steel fortresses. Surrounded by dozens of cruisers and destroyers, they arrogantly tear through the waves, heading straight for the Dragon Country's East Sea exclusive security zone. Inside the command room of the U.S. Combined Fleet flagship, the atmosphere is feverish and arrogant. Secretary of Defense Williams stands before the massive tactical bulletproof glass, holding a half glass of deep red wine, a cruel sneer curling on his lips. He looks at the red dots representing the Dragon Country fleet on the radar, his eyes full of disdain. A bunch of cowards who only know how to talk big. In the face of absolute tonnage and firepower, all protests are merely the whimpers of beaten dogs. Williams swirls his wine glass, turns to the weapon console, and swings his arm down sharply, like a dictator pronouncing a death sentence. First attack wave. Prepare. Specialized cryo-shells loaded. Target thermal source in the East Sea security zone. Freeze that beast into an ice sculpture for me. Fire. At his command, the vertical launch systems of the Vanguard ships roar open. Dozens of missiles, trailing long plumes of fire, soar into the sky, like a giant inverted net of death, crossing the standoff line, slamming down hard into the deep sea where I reside. Boom! 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 The moment the missiles hit the water, there are no earth-shattering explosions, but rather a dull, bone-chilling cracking sound. The high-compression chemical agents inside the cryo-shells, upon contact with seawater, react violently. Absolute zero temperatures of -200 degrees, spread frantically at a speed that defies nature. Visibly, the once turbulent sea surface freezes instantly. White frost spreads like a plague. Rolling waves are frozen midair, locked in a bizarre, arrogant posture. In just a dozen seconds, the surrounding 10 nautical miles of sea turn into a massive, bone-chilling frozen morgue of ice. Thunderous cheers erupt inside the flagship command room. Sir, the target area is completely frozen. Thermal imaging shows the massive underwater thermal source is cooling rapidly. Vital signs are fading. The radar operator's face is flushed with excitement. Williams tilts his head back and drains the red wine, laughing wildly. Beautifully done. I knew it. Carbon-based lifeforms simply cannot withstand this instant absolute zero. Pass the order. Have the lurking nuclear submarine fleet move in immediately and inject the gene suppression virus. I want it alive. He can already see himself leading this behemoth back, receiving the adoration of thousands on Capitol Hill. However, before his arrogant laughter could fade, a sudden mutation occurs in the deep sea. 800 meters below, covered by a thick layer of ice. I lie quietly on the rocky bed. The surrounding seawater has been completely frozen. The terrifying cold is like countless steel needles, attempting to pierce my scales. For ordinary marine creatures, this would indeed be an instant death blow. But 2 days ago, I devoured 300 kilograms of military-grade enriched uranium, completing my first controlled evolution. Inside my massive 200-meter body, a full-power biological nuclear fusion reactor is roaring frantically. I feel a nauseating chill, but it only lingers on the surface. My evolved, obsidian-hard keratin layer perfectly insulates me from the lethal cold. I slowly open my eyes. Dark red vertical pupils light up in the pitch-black ice, like 2 lit lanterns of the Grim Reaper. Do they really take me for some zoo monkey? A surge of tyrannical rage erupts from the depths of my heart. The countdown to the alien beast tide is like a guillotine hanging over humanity's neck. I've spent days and nights testing my abilities and preparing defenses. Yet these idiots from across the ocean, for their own greed, have pointed their guns at the very meat shield standing at the front. Absolutely unforgivable. An extremely dull, low-frequency hum, enough to shatter internal organs, explodes from the depths of the ocean. The solid ice on the surface begins to tremble violently. Inside the flagship command room, the radar operator's smile instantly freezes. He looks at the red energy pillar on the screen suddenly spiking exponentially. His voice cracking. "Sir, the thermal reaction has reappeared. No, is not recovering, is skyrocketing. The core temperature has breached the critical threshold." Williams lunges at the console. "What did you say?" Crack. Boom. Before he can finish his sentence, on the frozen sea surface ahead, a massive fissure, piercing heaven and earth, explodes open. Tens of thousands of tons of ice are forced upward by an overwhelming power. Soaring into the clouds, a dark black behemoth, 200 meters tall, like an ancient demon crawling out of the abyss of hell, stepping through the rain of ice shards, slowly straightens its body from the water. The seawater boils. The extreme heat radiating from my body instantly melts and vaporizes the -200-degree ice. Vast clouds of white steam envelop me, making that massive silhouette even more terrifying and oppressive. I pay no mind to the helicopters and warships. I slightly lift my face, covered in hideous scales and thick-boned spikes. Dark red eyes locked onto the flagship carrier at the center of the joint fleet. A familiar ripple of distortion appeared in the air, a low, heavy shockwave with a metallic resonance, pierced straight through the bulletproof glass of every warship. "Since you've delivered yourselves to me, don't bother going back." With those words, the entire joint fleet was sentenced to death. The row of stegosaurus-like dorsal fins on my back didn't glow with their usual eerie blue light. This time, starting from the tip of my tail, a blinding crimson light, as if igniting the void, surged upward like raging lava. Red Lotus form, atomic breath. This is the new killing move I mastered after evolving. By instantaneously overclocking the nuclear fusion reactor in my body, I pushed the temperature and destructive power to an atrocious level. Intercept it now. Williams screamed hysterically inside the command center. His previous arrogance had completely vanished. The fleet's CIWS and anti-air missiles opened fire frantically. A dense barrage of fire rained down on me like a metallic storm, but those armor-piercing shells capable of shredding steel, hitting my obsidian-like scales, only produced a series of faint sparks. Not even a scratch was left behind. I opened my abyssal maw. A crimson high-energy plasma beam over 5 meters wide, carrying an all-destroying force, erupted with a roar. The crimson beam didn't scatter in the slightest. Like a giant flaming sword wielded by a god, it sliced through the air instantly, precisely hitting the flight deck of the leading Nimitz-class carrier. Screech, the indestructible specialized flight deck, faced with temperatures of tens of thousands of degrees, was more fragile than a sheet of window paper. The crimson beam melted through the deck without resistance, pierced through the hangar, and slammed straight into the carrier's lowest ammunition magazine. Time seemed to freeze for half a second. Then, a colossal dark red fireball expanded violently across the sea. Thousands of tons of bombs and anti-ship missiles inside triggered a catastrophic chain of explosions. The 100,000-ton steel behemoth let out a painful wail before this world-ending power. The massive hull was brutally torn and snapped in half. Fuel-laden fighter jets were tossed into the air like toys, before turning to ash in the sea of fire. Amidst the towering flames, the entire carrier snapped in two, trailing billowing black smoke. As it sank desperately into the boiling depths, dead silence fell over everything. Whether it was the fleeing sailors, or the Dragon Country fleet waiting in reserve, all were utterly shaken by this scene of divine punishment. In a single strike, the most powerful surface force on the blue planet, the pinnacle of human industrial achievement, was wiped out in an instant. Submarines, tell the submarines to fire. Kill it with nuclear torpedoes. Williams collapsed to the floor, screaming frantically into the communicator, his voice shrill with absolute terror. The 3 Los Angeles-class nuclear submarine squadrons hidden below had already lost their nerve. But under the pressure of a death-defying order. They gritted their teeth and opened the torpedo tubes. A dozen heavy wire-guided torpedoes trailing white wakes closed in from all sides to strangle Lin Yi. I let out a cold snort. My massive body dove suddenly into the water. My giant tail, as thick as a skyscraper, swung violently underwater, creating a raging deep-sea undercurrent. That tail was like an indestructible steel whip, precisely sweeping across the path of the incoming torpedoes. The heavy torpedoes never even got close to my scales, before being crushed instantly by the terrifying physical pressure. Muffled underwater explosions echoed one after another, sending massive plumes of water skyward. Using the momentum of my dive, I locked onto the positions of those dozen nuclear submarines, and charged straight into the center of their formation. My massive claws reached out, effortlessly tearing open the pressure hulls of the Los Angeles-class subs. The screeching sound of tearing metal echoed through the ocean floor. I didn't go on a mindless slaughter. My sharp claws precisely peeled open the reactor compartments, and ripped out the glowing blue fuel rods and weapons-grade enriched uranium. I tore them out in one go. I opened my maw wide, and took those highly radioactive materials, lethal to any human, and swallowed them like spicy snacks, absorbing them directly into my belly. After gutting the reactors of 5 or 6 nuclear submarines, my internal energy reserves instantly hit an unprecedented peak. A violent blue current began to dance wildly across the plates on my back, surging and flowing. I burst through the surface, my 200-meter frame towering proudly above the sea. I took a deep breath, my chest swelling high, the blue light on my fins reaching a blinding intensity. But I didn't unleash a high-temperature breath. Instead, I let out a world-shaking low roar, a translucent, rippling, eerie blue electromagnetic pulse breath, with me as the epicenter, like a silent storm, instantly swept across the sea for 100 miles. This was an absolute dimensionality strike against modern electronic industry. The moment the pulse swept through, on every remaining destroyer and cruiser of the Joint Fleet, those precision phased array radars, fire control systems, and communication boards, all erupted into brilliant sparks. Every screen went black instantly. Engines ground to a screeching halt. This heavily armed modern fleet became a heap of blind and deaf husks floating on the water, completely paralyzed. The entire reversal of the battle, from the moment I broke the surface to the fleet's paralysis, took less than 20 minutes in total. 2 carriers sunk, dozens of warships destroyed. The remaining ships lost all power, rocking desperately in the waves. The remaining sailors looked at the black demon standing amidst the fire, and their psychological defenses completely shattered. They knelt on the decks one after another, dropping their weapons, praying for God's salvation. All units, attack. Close the net. On the Dragon Country Fleet's command ship, Lin Jianjun slammed his hand on the console, his gaze sharp as a blade. The East Sea Fleet, which had been holding back until now, was now like a swarm of arrows released from a bow, charging into the battlefield at full speed. Marines on speedboats quickly boarded the paralyzed U.S. warships, pressing their muzzles against the foreheads of the terrified captains. Williams' command ship was pinned between 2 large destroyers. The hatch was violently breached, and several fully armed Dragon Country special forces stormed in, pinning the collapsed Williams firmly to the deck. "You can't arrest me. I am the Secretary of Defense of the United States. You are provoking a world war." Williams was still making a final struggle. The leading Dragon Country officer sneered, pulled out a tactical terminal, and played an audio clip, Williams' voice clearly ordering the freeze bomb attack, and the original command to inject the gene virus. "Mr. Williams, the recording of your capture plan, and the money trail of your collusion with extremists in our country, were submitted 5 minutes ago by our highest representative, simultaneously to the UN General Assembly." The officer's tone was ice cold. "For the rest of your life, in the highest security military prison. Tone for your stupidity." The news sent shockwaves across the globe. Public opinion within the US exploded instantly. Within a few short hours, the Hawk faction led by Williams collapsed, and all were arrested for investigation. This aggressive capture plan turned into a complete international laughingstock. And deep within the East China Sea, after the battle, I ignored the cleanup on the surface, and sank directly to the deepest depths. The massive amount of nuclear fuel I devoured from the submarine fleet was triggering a cataclysmic transformation within me. That colossal energy was like an unbridled stallion, violently scouring my cellular structure. I writhed in agony in the deep sea, as sheets of old black scales peeled away, replaced by something denser, with a faint, dark golden luster, heavy-duty armor. My bones creaked and groaned, stretching and restructuring frantically. 200 meters, 300 meters, 400 meters. When everything finally settled, I slowly stood up from the seabed. I had completed my second controlled evolution. At this moment, my height had breached the terrifying 500-meter mark. That world-shaking pressure even caused the surrounding ocean currents to stagnate. Not only that, I felt a mysterious energy loop established between the dorsal plates on my back and the reactor within. With a single thought, my massive body actually broke free from the seabed's gravity. Relying on the energy recoil, I began to hover in the water. Short-range impulse flight capability unlocked. This meant I was no longer a clumsy target limited to the sea and land. I now possessed absolute aerial maneuverability. But forced consumption and evolution came with a heavy price. An unprecedented wave of weakness washed over me. My eyelids felt as heavy as lead. The energy in my body was completely drained by the forced restructuring. I knew this was the body remodeling phase after evolution. For the next 3 days, I would fall into a deep slumber, completely defenseless. Old Lin, using the last shred of my mental strength, I sent my coordinates and a status report to Lin Jianjun. I need to sleep for 3 days. During these 3 days, I will be unable to fight back, entrusting my back to humans. It was a gamble. 10 seconds later, Lin Jianjun's voice rang out over the comms, decisive, carrying an iron-blooded will that could shake the heavens. You just sleep. All air, sea, and land-based forces of the theater, move in. Around your sleeping coordinates, construct 3 absolute defense perimeters, 30 kilometers, 50 kilometers, and 100 kilometers. Lin Jianjun stood at the bow of the command ship, gazing at the turbulent sea, and suddenly drew the pistol from his waist. He chambered around. Order the entire army. For these 3 days, even if God himself comes to the East Sea, shoot them down. If anyone dares touch a single hair of our national guardian beast, Dragon Country, will go to war at any cost. Hearing the orders over the comms, I slowly closed my eyes and fell into a deep sleep in the abyss. In this moment, I truly entrusted my life to this nation, and this nation was using its entire strength to protect its deity. 17 days remaining until the arrival of the outer beasts. The real storm has only just begun. East Sea, Forbidden Zone 0. Dark clouds pressed down on the sea like heavy slabs of lead, not letting a single breeze through. The sea was crowded with dense steel giants, bow to stern, stern to bow, like a great wall of steel spanning heaven and earth. Since I fell into deep slumber, exactly 68 hours had passed. In these 68 hours, not even a single seabird could fly into this area. The Eastern Theater Command had spared no expense. 3 absolute defense circles sealed my sleeping coordinates tight. The outer ring was a deep-sea denial line formed by nuclear submarine fleets. The middle layer was a surface fire network of missile destroyers and frigates. The inner circle consisted of all-weather aerial patrol squadrons brought by 2 conventional aircraft carriers. On the bridge of the command ship Taishan, Lin Jianjun stood before the tactical sandbox, his eyes bloodshot. He hadn't closed his eyes for nearly 3 days and nights. Gray stubble covered his chin, and his once crisp general's uniform looked wrinkled. But he still stood like a steel nail driven into the deck, radiating a killing intent that made one dare not look him in the eye. Chief, please take 10 minutes to rest. The chief of staff approached with a glass of warm water, worry in his voice. Elder Chen just sent the undersea vital signs report. Lin Ye's cellular restructuring is nearing completion. He is expected to wake up fully in 4 hours. I'll keep an eye on things here. Lin Jianjun waved him off, pushing the water glass away, his gaze locked onto the radar screen. Any movement from across the ocean? After Williams was arrested, the U.S. was in total chaos. The major conglomerates are fighting like dogs in the capital. Their Pacific fleet has retreated entirely to their bases. On the surface, they seem to have behaved. The chief of staff reported. On the surface, Lin Jianjun sneered, a cold glint flashing in his hawk-like eyes. Remember, never underestimate the bottom line of those Anglo-Saxons. Things they cannot have, they would rather destroy than leave for others. The quieter it is, the more it means something dirty is lurking beneath the surface. Just as Lin Jianjun finished speaking, a piercing theater-level red alert exploded shrilly within the bridge without warning. Not from the surface radar, nor the deep-sea sonar, but a warning from outside the atmosphere. Report. Commander, emergency line from the Supreme Space Command. The communications officer ripped off his headset, his voice distorted by extreme terror. In low Earth orbit, a U.S. satellite, designated as decommissioned weather satellite, suddenly changed orbit 30 seconds ago and shed its camouflage shell. The main screen switched instantly, magnifying a high-definition optical photo from space. That wasn't a weather satellite at all, but a 20-meter-long shuttle-shaped orbital weapons platform. As the camouflage shell fell away, 3 gaping launch tubes were revealed on the platform's belly. Space-based kinetic weapons. The chief of staff gasped, his face turning pale instantly. The target is locked. This Forbidden Zone 0. 3 rods from God have completed completed deorbit ignition, and are plummeting toward us at Mach 14. Estimated impact time, 2.5 minutes. The entire bridge fell into a deathly silence. Rods from God, a theoretical conceptual weapon that existed only in top-secret blueprints. It carries no nuclear warheads or high explosives, consisting entirely of high-density solid tungsten alloy rods. Falling from low Earth orbit, relying on Earth's gravitational acceleration, it releases a terrifying kinetic energy comparable to a tactical nuclear weapon upon impact. 2.5 minutes. Lin Jianjun took a deep breath, his brain completing countless tactical calculations in 0.1 seconds. Lin Yi is currently in the most critical stage of cocooning and metamorphosis. Undersea sensors show that even his basic scale defense hasn't fully hardened. If he is hit by a tungsten rod carrying such horrific kinetic energy, the seabed strata will be instantly pierced, and that overwhelming physical shockwave, enough to shatter Lin Ye's internal organs while they were still reforming. No way to dodge. Only way is to tank it. Lin Jianjun suddenly snapped upright. A roar like a raging lion erupted from him, completely shattering the panic within the bridge. Order the first, second, and third anti-air missile arrays to disarm all safety locks. Launch every single anti-ballistic interceptor into the sky. Every ship in the East Sea Fleet with anti-air capabilities. Preheat CIWS to full power. Adjust barrage elevation to maximum. As Lin Jianjun's orders were issued, the calm surface of the East Sea instantly boiled. Vertical launch cells of dozens of heavy destroyers blew open in succession. Orange-red plumes of fire lit up the oppressive dark clouds. Hundreds of interceptors, the pinnacle of Dragon Country's industrial achievement, like a reverse meteor shower, trailing long streaks of white smoke, lunged frantically toward the heavens. In space, 3 10-meter tungsten alloy rods had entered the atmosphere. Intense friction with the air ignited blinding flames on their surfaces, like 3 flaming spears hurled by the gods, bearing a sense of suffocating pressure, aiming straight for me at the bottom of the sea. Interception countdown. In the upper atmosphere, explosions suddenly erupted one after another. Dragon Country's anti-ballistic system performed at its absolute peak. Dense interceptors under precise radar guidance collided violently with 2 of the tungsten rods. Shrapnel from the explosions turned into a magnificent fireworks display of steel. 2 successfully intercepted, the radar operator shouted in excitement. But in the next second, his voice cut off abruptly, like a rooster being strangled. The third one, interception, failed. Its trajectory performed a micro-adjustment at the end, pierced through the interception net. On the big screen, the final burning tungsten rod, with an unstoppable momentum, tore through the clouds, accompanied by a piercing sonic boom. It plummeted straight down toward the surface of Forbidden Zone 0, 30,000 meters remaining to the surface. 5 seconds. In this amount of time, there wasn't even enough time to reload the anti-air missiles. Before the tactical sand table, Lin Jianjun stared intensely at the red, representing the rod. His teeth ground together with a grating sound. Beneath the sea sleeps the guardian divine beast. This kinetic energy cannot be allowed to penetrate the water. Call the destroyer Taihang. Lin Jianjun grabbed the communicator. His voice was hoarse, yet carried a heartbreaking resolve. Taihang receiving. Awaiting your orders, Commander. From the other end of the communicator came the firm voice of Captain Li Jianming. Taihang, hard to starboard immediately. Cut full speed to the coordinates directly above Lin Ye's slumber. Your mission is to use the hull to block that tungsten rod. Lin Jianjun closed his eyes. 2 streaks of tears rolled down his stubbled cheeks. He was ordering an entire warship, along with hundreds of officers and soldiers, to act as a human shield. A brief silence fell over the communication channel. Only the sound of waves crashing against the hull. 1 second later, Li Jianming's voice rang out once more, without fear, without hesitation. Only the composure and iron will of a Dragon Country soldier. Taihang understands. All crew members are in position. Commander, we will hold this sea. On the open sea, the engines of the 7,000-ton destroyer Taihang erupted with a deafening roar. Like a mad bull embracing death, carved a rough white wake across the surface, positioning itself precisely at those fatal coordinates. In the sky, a blinding red light already shrouded the entire sea area. The air smelled of burning, scorched by the high-speed plummeting rod. On the deck of the Taihang, not a single person fled. Every sailor stood at their post, looking up at the spear of destruction. They raised their right hands and gave a solemn military salute. Between heaven and earth, all sounds seemed to vanish. That tungsten rod, carrying kinetic energy equivalent to dozens of tons of TNT, slammed bluntly into the bow of the Taihang. The hard special armor steel before this pure kinetic force was as fragile as a piece of tofu. The moment of impact, the massive hull was snapped in half and crushed. The sounds of twisting and snapping metal merged into a bone-chilling wail. The terrifying kinetic energy centered on the Taihang, surged violently into the surrounding waters. A massive depression over 100 meters wide formed on the surface. Tens of thousands of tons of seawater were forced into a towering wall of water. The Taihang, this decorated warship with 10 years of service, used its own destruction to soak up this devastating blow. The wreckage, engulfed in fire and thick smoke, slowly sank toward the ocean floor. The kinetic energy was reduced by 90%, but the remaining shockwaves still traveled through the water, reaching the seabed 800 meters below. At the bottom of the sea, I was inside a giant cocoon of dense energy and dark matter. I had actually regained consciousness when the interceptors exploded, but I couldn't move. The raging nuclear energy within me was completing its final circuitry. Through my perception of the currents, I clearly saw everything happening on the surface. I saw that tungsten rod radiating an aura of destruction. I saw the destroyer named Taihang throw itself unhesitatingly above my head. I felt the resolve of those Dragon Country soldiers in their final moments. The shockwaves slammed into the black cocoon. Fine cracks began to spiderweb across its surface. My internal organs, not yet fully formed, leaked golden blood under the vibration. Pain, but more painful than the physical agony, was the crushing weight of being protected by others' lives. Crack, a tiny, faint sound of fracturing echoed through the deep, then a second, then a third. The black cocoon binding my massive body began to peel away in great sheets. The undercurrents of the deep suddenly froze. A terrifying gravitational field, inexplicable by science, exploded violently with me at the center. The surrounding seawater was forcibly pushed aside by the field, forming a sphere of absolute vacuum. I opened my eyes. They were no longer the dark red slit pupils of before, but a deep, dark gold, as if containing the stars of the universe. My size had surged from 200 meters to a suffocating 500 meters. The rough scales were gone. In their place was a layer of obsidian-like armor, smooth and dense with edges as sharp as blades. The stegosaurus-like plates on my back grew even larger. At the center of every plate flowed a liquid-like, deep blue, high-concentration nuclear fusion energy. I opened my mouth slightly. You want to die? A psychic wave, cold enough to freeze the soul, tore through 800 meters of seawater, broke through the clouds, and following the Earth's magnetic field, locked precisely onto a secret underground command center across the ocean. On the surface, Lin Jianjun's eyes were bloodshot. He gripped the railing tightly, staring at the waters where the Taihang's wreckage sank. Rescue boats were frantically pulling survivors from the water. Commander, the seabed, the gravitational field on the seabed has a major problem. The sonar operator suddenly screamed, scrambling out of the cabin, pointing toward the sea. Lin Jianjun turned to look, and saw the waters where the Taihang had sunk. The seawater suddenly seemed to lose all gravity, surging upward toward the sky in massive waves. Millions of tons of water, transformed into a colossal waterspout connecting heaven and earth, flowing backward, ascending. Amidst this spectacle that defied all laws of physics, a black silhouette so massive it was suffocating, slowly rose from the ocean floor, without a single splash, without the roar of any propulsion. The 500-meter-tall Lin Yi just floated there in midair. My thick tail hung loosely in the air, yet caused the surrounding space to ripple with visible distortions. Anti-gravity field. Academician Chen Jingshan witnessed this via remote surveillance. The tablet in his hand hit the floor with a thud, tears streaming down his face. Biological anti-gravity. He has broken the barrier between nuclear energy and gravitational waves. This isn't a monster. This is a god. This is the truth. I hovered above the sea, glancing over the Dragon Country ships rescuing sailors, a hint of softness flickering in my eyes. Then I looked up, those dark golden eyes locking onto the firmament. Beyond the atmosphere, the orbital platform that launched the rod from God still floated silently, waiting to assess the impact. My chest expanded violently. The surrounding air was instantly sucked dry, creating a brief vacuum storm. The dorsal fins on my back didn't light up one by one, but erupted simultaneously in a blinding crimson-gold radiance, a higher stage of energy compression than the Red Lotus state. Nebula Breath. A crimson-gold beam, only as thick as a bucket but dense as solid matter, suddenly erupted from Lin Ye's mouth. The beam made no sound, yet its speed exceeded the limits of human vision. It instantly pierced through the heavy dark clouds, sliced through the atmosphere, and tore straight into outer space. The massive weapons platform in low Earth orbit didn't even have time to trigger its alarms before the crimson-gold beam pierced right through its center. There was no explosion. The moment the platform touched the beam, it was instantly decomposed by tens of millions of degrees and a terrifying particle stream into its most basic atomic form, completely erased from this universe. Having done all this, I slowly lowered my head, controlling the anti-gravity field. I landed steadily on the sea near the wreckage of the Taihang. Ripples shimmered through the air. That metallic voice echoed in Lin Jianjun's ear once more. This time, the fatigue was gone, replaced by an imperial dominance and absolute coldness. Old Lin, you owe me a meal. I've cleared the carriers for you. Now, I owe the Taihang a ship. I turned around, my massive body like a black iron tower, facing the endless deep space. In 14 days, when those scumbags from above descend, I will use their lives as a sacrifice to this sea, the deepest part of the ocean, the Mariana Trench, a forbidden zone for the physical laws of the blue planet. Water pressure reaching 1,100 atmospheres. Sunlight has never touched this silent abyss for millions of years. A few deep-sea blind fish with glowing tentacles swam slowly, searching for tiny organic matter from hydrothermal vents. Without warning, the gentle deep-sea currents came to a halt. Then, space itself seemed to become a piece of cloth violently torn apart, emitting a jarring, acoustically inexplicable rip. A ghostly purple rift over 100 meters long tore open out of nowhere in the pitch-black water. Eerie electric arcs flickered along the edges of the rift. The surrounding water was instantly pushed aside, creating a zone of absolute vacuum. A massive limb, covered in ghostly green fluorescence and made of unknown crystals jointed appendage, suddenly lunged from the rift, gripping the seabed rock with a crushing force. Under the pressure of this unnatural force, the rock was instantly pulverized. Then, a 300-meter monster, looking like a hybrid of a deep-sea apex predator and heavy armored mech, slowly squeezed out of the spatial rift. It had no facial features in the traditional sense. Its inverted triangular head was completely covered by a translucent, dark green silicon-based armor covering it entirely. Beneath the armor, high-concentration corrosive energy flowed. Its body possessed a sickly streamlined shape. 6 jointed spears, sharp as scalpels, grew from its back. Its tail was a massive acid sac shimmering with a lethal toxic glow. Extraterrestrial silicon-based life. Void Rift Vanguard. Codename Scythe Bone. As soon as it appeared, the energy core hidden behind the third carapace of its chest began to flash violently. It had no sight, but it could perceive the world by capturing heat remnants and electromagnetic fluctuations in the water. Soon, it locked onto a massive heat source 300 nautical miles away. After the crushing defeat in the East China Sea, the remnants of that fleet were huddling in the port for emergency repairs. From the silicon-armored throat of Scythe Bone came a sharp shriek, like glass grinding frantically. Its powerful hind legs lunged against the seabed. The terrifying recoil carved a crater hundreds of meters wide into the ocean floor. This 300-meter monster, at a terrifying speed that defied fluid dynamics, tore through the deep sea, heading straight for Guam. At the same time, in the underground fortress of the Dragon Country's Eastern Theater Command, a piercing alarm shattered the silence of the command hall. On the global energy monitoring map on the big screen, the sector representing the West Pacific suddenly lit up with a glaring crimson halo. Commander-in-Chief, spatial curvature anomalies detected in the direction of the Mariana Trench, followed by an unidentified heat source of extreme intensity. The intelligence officer bolted upright, his voice tight with tension. "It's moving too fast. The target is moving at an underwater speed of 120 knots, heading straight for the U.S. base in Guam. No matches found in the acoustic signature database." Lin Jianjun stood before the main console, his bloodshot yet sharp eyes staring intently at the red dot on the screen. He wasn't surprised in the least. The first prophetic coordinate Lin Yi gave was the Mariana Trench. Lin Jianjun leaned both hands on the table. "That beast has finally arrived." He turned to academician Chun Jingshan beside him. "Elder Chen, what is Lin Ye's current status?" Chun Jingshan was sitting before a cluster of complex bioelectric signal receivers, his fingers dancing across the keyboard, a fanatical light glimmering in the old man's eyes. Hearing Lin Jianjun's question, he snapped his head up. "Excellent. 3 days of slumber. He has completely stabilized his 500-meter anti-gravity form. His current energy reserves have even exceeded the warning limit. He just sent me a brainwave feedback." Chun Jingshan swallowed hard, adding, "He says he's hungry." A bloodthirsty curve curled on Lin Jianjun's cold lips. "Connect to Zone 0 communications." A few seconds later, the encrypted channel was established. Lin Jianjun grabbed the microphone, his voice steady as iron. "Lin Yi, the target has appeared. 300-meter class, silicon-based lifeform, heading to Guam. Your judgment is completely accurate." On the other end of the line came a low hum that vibrated the seawater. Then came that deep, metallic male voice. "It's the scout dog." My voice carried an unquestionable dominance. "The armor density of silicon-based life and the kill rate of conventional weapons. We need real combat data. I'll slaughter this dog myself. Have the heavy bombers carry the newly developed high-frequency vibration bombs and stand by in the air." "Understood." Lin Jianjun ended the call decisively. "East China Sea, Zone 0. Upon the surging waves, a colossal, suffocating black silhouette slowly emerged. At 500 meters tall, I was like a silent, living volcano. Sunlight hit my dense, obsidian-like heavy bone armor, reflecting a cold and violent metallic luster. I didn't rely on my tail to slap the water, but directly activated the anti-gravity field within me. The surrounding seawater surged backward, as my massive body was hoisted by an invisible force, soaring into the sky in an instant. The stegosaurus-like plates on my back erupted in a blinding ghostly blue light, a physical reaction of nuclear energy converting into propulsion. The air was shattered by the terrifying kinetic energy, and a massive white sonic boom cloud exploded across the sea. I was like a black meteorite flying in reverse. BUAM. Tearing through the firmament at a terrifying speed exceeding multiple Machs. BUAM. Charging straight into the heart of the Pacific. BUAM. Meanwhile, at the Guam Naval Base, it had already become a living hell. 10 minutes ago, the U.S. defense radars had barely captured that deep-sea demon approaching at a speed of 120 knots. Before the base commander could issue defense orders, Sidebone had already breached the surface. A 300-meter-tall silicon monster, covered in deep-sea silt and ghostly green slime, slammed violently into the harbor's breakwater. The tens of thousands of tons of reinforced concrete were like cardboard before its razor-sharp appendages, collapsing in an instant. Open fire. Destroy that monster. My God, the harbor defense commander screamed hysterically over the comms. Two Arleigh Burke-class destroyers, barely powered up, aimed their 127mm main guns at the monster on shore, pouring out fire relentlessly. A barrage of armor-piercing shells, trailing orange flames, rained down upon Sidebone. But then, a scene of utter despair unfolded. Shells capable of piercing heavy tank armor hit the monster's translucent, dark green silicon shell, producing only weak sparks. The kinetic energy was absorbed and deflected by that eerie armor, leaving not even a single scratch. Sidebone turned its eyeless, inverted triangular head, and the energy core in its chest flared brightly. It opened its maw, filled with interlocking crystalline fangs, and a jet of pale green, high-pressure corrosive plasma erupted. The stream poured precisely onto one of the destroyers. There was no explosion, only a skin-crawling hissing sound. Under the corrosion of that pale green liquid, the special bulletproof steel was like shaving cream hit by boiling water, emitting billowing yellow smoke at a visible rate, rapidly dissolving and collapsing. The sailors on board didn't even have time to scream, before they and the ship melted into a bubbling pool of toxic molten iron, sinking into the harbor. The entire base completely collapsed. Soldiers dropped their weapons, fleeing toward the island's interior like madmen. Sidebone strode forward on its 6 massive appendages, slaughtering at will and devouring nuclear fuel from the wrecks of nuclear carriers. Fuel. Just as it prepared to destroy the last radar station on the island, its movements suddenly froze. The energy core in its chest began to flicker wildly. A feeling of absolute suppression from a higher biological tier descended from the sky like a crushing mountain. Sidebone snapped its head up, looking toward the heavens. The thick clouds were torn apart by a brutal force, and a black demon nearly twice its size, carrying heat capable of burning the sky and boiling the sea, plummeted vertically from the stratosphere. I didn't slow down at all. Instead, I instantly reversed my anti-gravity field, converting it into a terrifying gravitational boost. A massive 500-meter body, combined with gravitational acceleration, was like a heavy hammer forged by the gods, smashing down violently upon Sidebone. Boom! Under this devastating impact, the entire Guam base suffered a magnitude 12 earthquake. The hard island rock was crushed into a massive meteorite crater 100 meters deep. Spiderweb-like cracks spread wildly in all directions as seawater surged into the fissures, kicking up towering plumes of steam. Sidebone didn't even have time to dodge before it was pinned firmly beneath my legs, which were as thick as mountain ranges. The violent shockwave overturned all surrounding ruins. The silicon scout beast beneath my feet let out a piercing shriek. Its proud, hard silicon shell, under the pure tonnage of my 500-meter frame, let out an overwhelmed cracking sound. But Sidebone was, after all, an interstellar predator. The 6 appendage spears on its back rose like lightning, with a sharpness capable of slicing through a carrier deck, stabbing fiercely toward my abdomen. A deafening clash of metal echoed through the sky. Amidst the flying sparks, I didn't even spare it a glance. Those spears struck my newly evolved obsidian bone armor, and were instantly jammed tight. My current armor density is a masterpiece forged through 2 rounds of nuclear fusion. It's simply impossible for a scout-level beast to penetrate. I looked down, my dark gold eyes flickering with cold data. I was using this opportunity to test. Silicon shell hardness is roughly 10 times that of current special steel. Physical resistance is extremely high, but the crystalline structure at the joints has toughness defects. I quickly built a defensive model of the enemy in my mind, and synchronized the data to the Dragon Country command via an encrypted frequency. Test complete. The scout dog has lost its value to live. Sidebone seemed to sense the threat of death. Its chest expanded wildly, maw wide open, preparing to spray spray that corrosive plasma at point-blank range, the kind that could melt warships. You still dare to open your mouth? A murderous glint flashed in my eyes. My massive right claw lunged forward, so fast it left an afterimage in the air, gripping Sidebone's fanged upper and lower jaws. Then, with absolute brute force, I ripped them apart. With a bone-chilling tearing sound, Sidebone's prized corrosive acid sac was ripped straight out of its throat. Pale green toxic fluids sprayed everywhere, landing on my bone armor, making a faint hissing sound, yet failing to burn through even the first layer of keratin. Old Lin hit its third chest plate. I released my grip, kicking the monster's mangled body thousands of meters away, smashing it into a distant mountain peak, 30,000 meters above the ocean. Inside the cockpit of a Dragon Country strategic bomber in stealth cruise, the weapons operator immediately locked onto the monster embedded in the mountain. Coordinates locked, deploying high-frequency vibration bomb. A streamlined black missile detached from the bay, like a hunting black hawk, diving at high speed towards Sidebone's position. Sidebone, just struggling to rise from the ruins, collided head-on with this uniquely shaped missile. The missile wasn't loaded with high explosives, but the moment it touched the chest plate, it activated its internal ultra-high-frequency sonic vibration generator. Buzz. An invisible frequency ripple precisely sliced into the molecular resonance band. Visible to the naked eye, the Sidebone's third shell, claimed to be indestructible, began to develop a dense web of cracks, and finally shattered with a loud bang, revealing a shimmering, eerie green energy core inside, pulsing like a heart energy core. The weakness was completely exposed. I stood thousands of meters away, my massive body sinking slightly. The stegosaurus-like plates on my back didn't light up one by one, but erupted simultaneously in a blinding crimson gold light. This is my ultimate move for destroying space-based weapons. Nebula Breath. No charging, no wind-up. I opened my massive maw, a concentrated crimson gold beam, no thicker than a bucket, like a sword of judgment, instantly pierced through thousands of meters of void, plunging precisely into the Sidebone's unprotected energy core. Tens of millions of degrees of heat and a terrifying particle stream exploded violently within the core. The Sidebone's 300-meter body froze instantly. Then, starting from the core, its entire body, like ignited fragile glass, quickly became covered in crimson cracks. 2 seconds later, with a muffled explosion, the entire Vanguard beast was blown into a sky full of silicon debris. Not a single intact piece of flesh remained. One-shot kill, absolute domination. On the outskirts of the Guam base, those surviving enemy soldiers lay in the mud, watching that black giant standing like a demon god between heaven and earth, each one weeping in terror. Some even began kowtowing frantically in my direction. They had just witnessed the helplessness of humanity's strongest weapon before a monster, and saw this monster crushed by an even more terrifying god like crushing a bug. This collapse of their worldview was more despairing than physical destruction. I ignored those insignificant humans. I took a heavy step, walking to the ashes of the alien beast, extending my giant claw, digging out a crystal core the size of a truck, although dim but still emitting a faint green light. This was the only energy reserve center of the Vanguard beast that wasn't incinerated. I tossed the crystal core directly into my mouth, crunching and swallowing it like a piece of ice. A cold and strange energy quickly merged into my bioreactor. Did you receive the data? I contacted the command center in Longwa via low-frequency sound waves. Inside the underground fortress, Lin Jianjun looked at the silicon armor penetration data just sent back on the screen, his eyes flashing with sharp light, slamming his fist hard onto the table. Received. The vibration bombs are indeed effective. Your test results will save the lives of thousands of our soldiers. Lin Jianjun took a deep breath, his tone becoming incredibly solemn and resolute. Linye, the vanguards have arrived. The arrival of the main force has entered the final countdown. I turned around to face the salty sea breeze blowing over the Pacific, those dark golden eyes gazing at the distant horizon. The moment I devoured that crystal core, I saw from the alien beast's residual memories, that terrifying swarm of beasts hidden beyond the deep space, dense enough to blot out the stars and the galaxy. A power of despair capable of plowing the surface of the blue planet 10 times over. 14 days, my voice echoed in the communication channel, carrying a murderous intent of no return. Tell Chen Jingshan to bring all your top-secret high-concentration reactors to the seashore. For these 14 days, I'm going to drain your national treasury. When the sky cracks open, I guarantee, not a single alien beast will set foot on Longwa's land alive. East Sea, Zone 0. Under the pitch-black night sky, violent winds whipped the sea surface frantically. I stood silently amidst the waves. Coordinates confirmed. The heart of the Amazon rainforest in South America. Lin Jianjun's voice sounded in Lin yes, mined via an encrypted frequency, with an unmistakable heaviness. The advanced speed of those vanguards exceeded our tactical projections. The defense lines of South American countries have completely collapsed. Conventional firepower can't even leave a white mark on them. If they break out of the rainforest and enter densely populated areas, the consequences will be unthinkable. My vertical pupils lit up in the night. My gaze pierced through layers of rain, locking onto the distant southwest. Leave it to me. No useless words. With a single thought, the biological nuclear fusion reactor burning like a star within me instantly increased power. Boom! The calm sea surface suddenly exploded. An anti-gravity magnetic field defying physical common sense erupted with me as the center. Millions of tons of seawater were forcibly pushed aside, forming a massive vacuum hemisphere. The massive black body rose from the ground, breaking free from the shackles of gravity. The stegosaurus-like plates on my back erupted in a blinding deep blue light. Nuclear energy converted into violent propulsion. I tore through the air, entering supersonic flight just above the sea surface. A visible white sonic boom cloud exploded on the sea. The violent air blast plowed a trench tens of meters deep into the Pacific, a white sea trench, beginning an expedition across half the globe. 12 full hours of high-intensity flight. When the first ray of morning sun tried to pierce the clouds of South America, the Amazon rainforest had already become a living hell. The once dense tropical rainforest was now riddled with scars. Towering black smoke blotted out the sun. A dozen silicon alien beasts, tens of meters long and hideous, were ravaging the scorched earth. The remnants of the South American Army's 3rd Armored Division were making a final stand. Fire! Don't stop! Stop them! Captain Silva roared hoarsely, blood seeping from the corners of his eyes. A dozen main battle tanks aimed their cannons at the lead alien beast. Armor-piercing shells rained down on the monster's translucent dark green shell. Sparks flew everywhere. The deafening sound of metal clashing echoed across the battlefield. But those shells capable of piercing composite armor could only leave a few shallow white marks on the beast's shell. The alien beast let out a piercing shriek, its chest lighting up with a ghastly green glow. Opening its maw, a thick, corrosive fluid sprayed out like a high-pressure water gun, pouring directly onto the 2 leading tanks. Sizzle. Pungent yellow smoke billowed upward. The tens of tons steel behemoths were like ice cream under a scorching sun. Amidst harrowing screams, along with the drivers inside, they were melted into bubbling, toxic molten iron in just a few seconds. Despair. Absolute despair. Silva looked at the approaching hideous behemoths and closed his eyes in defeat. Human weapons before these interstellar predators were as laughable as fire pokers. Just as he thought he was about to be melted into a pool of blood, the sky above suddenly darkened, not because of storm clouds, but because of a black mountain, appearing out of nowhere directly above the battlefield. Rumble, accompanied by a deafening, eardrum-piercing sonic boom. My massive 500-meter body crashed like a meteorite into the battlefield. The earth shuddered. Soil flew everywhere. The violent shockwave, like a Category 12 hurricane, uprooted trees for hundreds of meters around, and even knocked over several of the most aggressive alien beasts. A dozen alien beasts instantly stopped their slaughter. They all turned toward me in unison, sensing the terrifying force within this black demon god that made them tremble energy.
No hesitation, no standoff.
The outer beasts followed their predatory instincts. Roaring, they lunged at me. Their mouths spewed overwhelming corrosive fluids. A sky full of sickly green venom, like a rainstorm of death, enveloping my massive frame. In the distance, Silva and the remaining soldiers stared in horror. They had just witnessed the terror of this venom. Even for this colossal, mysterious beast, once tainted, its flesh would likely be burned through. But what happened the next second completely shattered their perception. The rain of venom, just 10 meters from my body, suddenly halted. The reactor running at full power inside me emitted heat comparable to a volcano extreme temperatures. Those corrosive fluids capable of melting armored steel couldn't even touch my obsidian-like scales. They were instantly evaporated by the terrifying heat in midair, turning into vast clouds of harmless green steam, drifting away with the wind. I looked down coldly at these vanguard beasts barking like wild dogs. Is this all you've got? My massive tail, thick as a skyscraper, whipped through the air, creating a piercing shriek that tore through the atmosphere. The giant tail, carrying overwhelming pure kinetic energy, slammed violently into the 3 beasts leading the charge. Their supposedly indestructible silicon shells were utterly useless. The 3 10-meter beasts couldn't even let out a scream before being crushed into pieces. Crystal shards and sickly green fluids splattered everywhere. Instant kill. The remaining beasts sensed the lethal threat. 2 slightly larger beasts, one from the left and one from the right, like 2 streaks of green lightning, leaped high, swinging swinging their sharp arthropod spears toward my neck. A flash of brutality crossed my eyes. I suddenly thrust out my two massive forelimbs covered in black barbs. So fast they left after images in the air. Crack, left and right. I precisely seized the two beasts in midair. Their hard silicon bodies felt like fragile plastic toys in my grip. The muscles in my arms bulged, dark red power surging beneath my scales. I ripped them apart with a violent pull, accompanied by a spine-chilling sound of tearing. The two beasts were torn clean in half. Green ichor poured down like a waterfall. With a reverse squeeze, I crushed the glowing energy cores inside them. 5 companions crushed into debris in the blink of an eye. The remaining beasts finally broke. The brutality of the interstellar raiders, when facing a true god, vanished completely. They turned and fled, digging and drilling frantically toward their deep underground nests, attempting to escape this demon. Think you can leave? My massive body sank slightly. My chest swelled high. The stegosaurus-like plates on my back didn't flash in sequence, but instantly erupted with a blinding, deep blue light. The surrounding air was instantly sucked dry, forming a massive vacuum vortex, a concentrated atomic breath, over 10 meters in diameter, like a sword of divine punishment piercing heaven and earth, blasted violently from my mouth. This deep blue beam of light pierced straight through the surface, pouring precisely into the underground nests where the beasts fled. The heart of the Amazon rainforest seemed to suffer an underground nuclear blast. Temperatures of millions of degrees instantly turned the rock and soil, along with those beasts hiding in the nests, all into nothingness. The ground collapsed. The heat sintered the land for several kilometers into a smooth, glassy crater. The smoke cleared. From my descent to the end of the battle took less than 10 minutes. The vanguard of outer beasts that left South America helpless and the world in panic unit was obliterated by this black god of war with overwhelming force. Completely wiped out. I didn't linger. I extended my giant claws and dug out a few relatively intact beast corpses from the chaotic battlefield. I needed to pack these trophies and take them back to give to Chun Jingshan's research team. Only by fully cracking the genetic sequence of the outer beasts could humanity find a more fatal weakness in the coming total war. At this moment, inside the UN Joint Command Center, there was a deathly silence. World leaders and military generals stared intently at the HD satellite footage. That 500-meter tall black figure, and the beast remains in my grip, were deeply seared into the souls of everyone. A few minutes ago, they were arguing in despair over the collapse of the defense lines. But now, a crisis capable of destroying nations was crushed by this miracle from the east. In just 10 minutes, the new dovish leader of the United States leaned back in his chair, defeated. He let out a long sigh. He looked at the screen showing the representative of the Dragon Country. There was no longer any arrogance or probing in his tone, only complete submission and awe. Your Excellency, representative of the Dragon Country, I represent the United States. To your nation, and to that great being, I express my deepest gratitude. He paused, and gritted his teeth to make a decision that betrayed his ancestors. From now on, the United States completely abandons its independent defense system. Our strategic nuclear reserves, top military industrial tech libraries, and the supreme command of overseas bases will all be unconditionally integrated into the Dragon Country's Joint Defense Command. At this moment, at this critical junction of survival, nations across the globe finally dropped all defenses and suspicions. They realized clearly that, in the face of interstellar raiders, humanity's pathetic infighting was meaningless. For the first time, all of humanity truly united, entrusting their lives to the Dragon Country without reservation, entrusting them to me. Another 12 hours of transoceanic flight. When my massive body reappeared on the horizon of the East Sea territorial waters, night had already fallen. No intercepting fighter jets. No wailing air raid sirens. I raised my head wearily. My dark gold vertical pupils suddenly contracted. I saw a breathtaking sight I will never forget in my life. From the port of Donghai City, stretching along hundreds of kilometers of coastline, it was brilliantly lit, as if it were daylight. Those were people. A dense sea of people, stretching beyond the horizon. On the coastal highways, the breakwaters, and even the rooftops of skyscrapers, stood crowds of ordinary citizens who had come spontaneously. Braving the sea breeze, they held various homemade neon signs and banners. Bosco, thank you for your hard work. Welcome home, hero. 1.4 billion people of the Dragon Country support you. On the sea, countless fishing boats of all sizes spontaneously formed 2 long guide lines. Red lanterns hung from the bows. The fishermen stood on the decks, without fear, only heartfelt fervor and gratitude. Lin Jianjun stood at the bow of the command ship, watching my arrival, and sharply raised his right hand, giving a military salute of utmost solemnity. Behind him, the entire crew of the East Sea Fleet snapped to attention and saluted. Cheers, car horns, and ship sirens merged together, shaking the heavens, echoing for a long time over the East Sea. I slowly descended into the deep waters of the safety zone. The cold seawater washed over my scorching scales, washing away the fatigue of battle. I looked at the tearful, excited faces on the shore, looking at those lights flickering in the wind and rain, yet incredibly bright. A low, gentle hum vibrated in my throat. In my previous life, I was an orphan, a technician who spent his youth in a lab for the sake of the country, only to die alone in the ruins. But in this second life, I am no longer fighting alone. Behind me stands this resilient nation, stand 1.4 billion compatriots bound by blood, stands the final spark of human civilization, plenty of food. My life is yours. I slowly close my eyes beneath the sea, seizing every moment to absorb energy. 10 days left until the true world-ending beast tide descends. I will reach my absolute peak, to face the bloody war that will tear the heavens apart, until the world-ending war destined to be etched into the annals of Planet Blue. Only 72 hours remain. Above the equator of the Pacific Ocean, the once azure stratosphere now glows with a sickly dark red. At the edge of the atmosphere, visible ripples of spatial distortion, like waves on water, surge incessantly. Even the sunlight filtering through is eerily refracted. It is the precursor of the interstellar rift fully forming, bridging two cosmic planes, the omen of immense spatial pressure. Dragon Country Eastern Theater Command. The Joint Defense Headquarters, 200 meters underground. A massive holographic projection of Earth floats in the center of the hall. The national borders, once marked in different colors, are now unified in a deep blue, representing the human alliance. A global joint defense system, driven by the countdown of survival, has been fully established with unprecedented, terrifying efficiency. Report, Commander-in-Chief. Intercontinental missile silo clusters 1 through 5 on the Siberian ice plains have completed the transfer of fire control system authority and are successfully integrated into the Joint Command Hub. Report, strategic missile arrays in the North American Midwest are now hardwired. All Minuteman nuclear vehicles have been replaced with conventional high-explosive warheads. Standing by, space-based early warning satellite clusters in the European theater are synchronized. Orbital deflection correction complete, providing blind spot-free coverage of the projected Rift Sea area. Inside the command hall, streams of data pour like waterfalls across hundreds of screens. Global intercontinental missile arrays have finally shattered all previous layers of defense and physical isolation. All are networked and linked, forming an absolute firepower net covering every corner of Planet Blue with no blind spots. Lin Jianjun stands before the holographic projection. He gazes at the dense cluster of glowing weapon nodes on the screen. His weathered face is etched with cold determination. Behind him stand the top generals from across the ocean, the EU, and the South American theater. These titans, who once plotted against each other at the negotiating table, now stand perfectly straight. Standing perfectly straight, awaiting the orders of this Dragon Country general. Everyone, tactical simulations have been run 10,000 times. There is no room for error. Lin Jianjun leans both hands on the command console. His sharp gaze sweeps across the room. His voice is as steady as iron, delivering the final joint land-sea-air defense strategy with thunderous authority. The first line of defense. The moment the rift opens completely, the global networked missile arrays and heavy firepower will launch an indiscriminate saturation bombardment. The sole objective of this strike is to do whatever it takes to wipe out the small and medium-sized beasts at the vanguard, to alleviate pressure on the subsequent lines. The second line of defense, comprised of the most elite special forces and mecha exoskeleton battalions from all nations. Your mission is to divide and conquer. Embed yourselves like nails into the strategic points of every continent. Your duty is to contain and eliminate those lone lord-level beasts that break through the firepower net and attempt to infiltrate the interior. They must not be allowed near the underground shelters. Lin Jianjun turns around. His thick finger slams down on the East Sea safety zone on the holographic map. That is the projected core landing point of the rift. The third line of defense, the main frontal battlefield. The Dragon Country's most elite heavy armored army and the entire East Sea Fleet will push forward. Hold the coastline at all costs. Even if we must pile up bodies, we must pin the beast tide to the coastal waters. A veteran European general takes a deep breath, steps forward, asks in a raspy voice, "General, what if top-tier lord-level beasts appear, or even beings that transcend the lord level? Our conventional firepower against monsters of that grade cannot break through their defenses." Lin Jianjun looks up. His gaze pierces through the thick underground shelter, toward the depths of the East Sea. Top-tier lords, and the final line of defense is left to him. The room falls silent. Everyone envisions that 500-meter figure like a black demon god. Yes, that is humanity's final trump card, and our only hope. Simultaneously, in the top-secret laboratory at the base of the Dragon Country's Supreme Research HQ, under the blinding lights of the clean room, hundreds of top scientists from around the world gather around a 10-meter-tall magnetic levitation containment device. This is the convergence of human wisdom in nuclear physics, quantum mechanics and high-energy materials science. Academician Chun Jingshan's eyes are bloodshot. He hasn't slept for 3 days and 3 nights, holding on through massive doses of stimulants and coffee. Magnetic containment stability at 99.9%. Internal temperature has breached the 100 million degree barrier. Microparticle collapse fusion reaction chain. Stable. A blonde, blue-eyed foreign physicist stares at the data panel. Their voice trembles with excitement. We did it. My God. We've put the sun in a jar. Chun Jingshan's hands tremble. He presses the final command to lift isolation. The heavy alloy shielding doors slowly rise. In the center of the containment device floats a 2-meter diameter core, radiating a dazzling gold-blue light in the shape of a regular polyhedron. Extremely complex energy patterns flow across the surface of the crystal core. The energy fluctuations contained within, even a mere ripple of the leaked energy, makes the surrounding air crackle under the pressure. This is the miracle forged by the exhaustive efforts and blood of the global research team. The world's only controllable fusion energy core. It is not a bomb. It is a battery compressed to the absolute limit. Inside is the equivalent of all global strategic nuclear reserves and the full load of every nuclear power plant combined. Old friends, you've worked hard. Chun Jingshan looks at the brilliant core. Tears stream down his aged face. He knows that humanity has sacrificed everything to assemble this ultimate feeding package for Lin Yi. Only by consuming this can Lin Yi complete the ultimate evolution across life dimensions, to face the oncoming world-ending beast tide head-on. Besides this fusion core, on the assembly line on the other side of the lab, robotic arms are operating frantically. High-frequency energy weapons urgently developed to target the genetic weaknesses of silicon-based beasts. Gene-suppressing agents capable of effectively slowing the regeneration of beast cells are rolling off the production line in a steady stream, boxed and packed, then airdropped 24/7 by military transport planes, to be mass-equipped to combat forces worldwide. The wheels of technology and military industry, faced with the crisis of human extinction, have slammed the accelerator to the floor, unleashing a terrifying level of productivity. Shifting gaze to the surface, the once bustling and noisy supercities of the world have now become ghost towns. All national underground fortifications have been reinforced and upgraded according to the unified highest standards set by the Dragon Country. Lead radiation shielding meters thick and high-strength concrete completely severed humanity from the surface. Ordinary citizens under military organization had all been orderly evacuated and settled deep within underground bunkers. There were no riots as imagined, no looting or arson common in apocalypse movies. The situation domestically was surprisingly stable. The state machinery demonstrated absolute control. Prices were frozen tight. Supplies were piled high as mountains. Water and power systems were under military management. Social order remained impeccable. Though tension over the unknown lingered on people's faces, there wasn't a shred of desperate panic, because they knew a powerful nation stood behind them, and a true God guarded them from the depths of the sea. This was the confidence of a people united, fighting for survival in a dead end. In the massive plazas of the underground bunkers, countless people kept their heads down, staring intently at the communication devices in their hands. At this moment, the global internet completely broke through all firewall restrictions. Across every social platform, only one topic remained at the top of the trending list.
No transnational arguments. No cultural barriers. No cultural barriers.
Netizens from all over the world use Chinese, English, Russian, French, and even various obscure tribal languages. Netizens use Chinese, English, Russian, French, and even various. Netizens posted in Chinese, English, Russian, French, and even obscure tribal languages, frantically refreshing the comments, filling the virtual walls of the entire internet. Every single message converged into an invisible, soul-stirring torrent of spirit. At this very moment, East Sea Forbidden Zone 0, inside a seabed trench 800 meters deep, I lay silently dormant in the gloomy abyss. The surrounding seawater was bone-chillingly cold, but the blood in my veins boiled and surged like magma. My eyes were closed, but my vast and keen psychic power was flowing through the military fiber optic cables laid on the seabed, connecting to the human communication network. I saw the all-angle global firepower deployment map in the command center. I saw the brilliant energy core tailored for him in Chun Jingshan's laboratory. I also saw on the internet the heavy hopes and prayers gathered from billions of people. I slowly opened my eyes beneath the sea, my vertical pupils igniting two soul-piercing flames in the dark. The biological nuclear reactor in my body let out a low, powerful roar, as if responding to the call of all humanity. Massive energy surged and compressed frantically between my meridians and heavy bone armor. My body was in a state of extreme hunger, on the brink of a breakthrough. I could clearly sense the invisible planar barrier above was creaking under the unbearable pressure. The greedy and brutal aura of the interstellar predators had already seeped through the cracks in space, spreading like a parasite clinging to the bone. Almost there, I whispered in my mind. My thick, sharp claws dug deep into the hard seabed rock. In my previous life, I died alone in the ruins, filled with despair and resentment. But this time, I have the support of the world's top arsenal. I have the energy core built from everything humanity had to offer, and I have the lights of 10,000 homes behind me that I must protect with my life. The final battle that will decide the survival of human civilization is coming. Let this East Sea become the eternal graveyard for those interstellar scums. Countdown to 0. The second hand of the clock froze exactly at midnight. The entire blue planet seemed to fall into absolute stillness at this moment. Even the wind stopped. Above the equator of the Pacific Ocean, that ugly, dark red stratosphere, clinging for 3 whole days like a scar, suddenly stopped churning. Then, a tooth-aching sound, like some giant fabric being ripped apart, a piercing shriek, exploded without warning in the minds of all humanity. That sound didn't travel through the air, but was a physical vibration caused by the collapse of the spatial structure. The sky split open, a pitch-black rift thousands of kilometers long and hundreds wide, like a hideous demonic eye, suddenly snapped open outside Earth's atmosphere. Violent, ghostly purple spatial lightning flickered at the edges of the rift, lighting up the night sky like a Shura hell. Through that rift, humans on the surface could faintly see another cosmic plane, a dead, cold, shattered starry sky filled with dark red nebulae. They're here. Inside the Eastern Theater Command's underground Joint Command Center, Lin Jianjun stared intently at the holographic screen, his hands pressing hard against the command console, his nails nearly digging into the special alloy tabletop. The moment the rift opened, the radar screen instantly turned a blinding crimson. Red dots representing high-energy reactions were densely packed, their numbers impossible to count. Like a disturbed hornet's nest, they were pouring frantically out of the spatial rift, turning into a sky full of meteors, smashing violently toward the surface of the blue planet. Calculate target numbers. Unable to calculate. Numbers exceed 100,000. The Vanguard beast tide has entered the thermosphere. Speed, Mach 20. The radar operator's voice cracked from extreme terror, carrying a desperate scream. This was the interstellar beast tide that once annihilated human civilization. They didn't need parachutes or deceleration engines. Relying on their peerless silicon-based shells, they used their bodies to tank the high temperatures of atmospheric entry, like burning meteorites, smashing toward this blue planet with all-destroying kinetic energy. Lin Jianjun took a deep breath, his chest heaving, then let out a roar like a wild lion that echoed through the hall. All-band broadcast, global defense line, fire, bring the sky down. He slammed down the red button on the main console, symbolizing humanity's ultimate force. At this moment, the sleeping steel behemoths fully bared their fangs. On the eternal ice plains of Siberia, heavy camouflage armor plates slid open with a crash. Thousands of heavy ICBMs trailing orange-red plumes, like fire dragons ascending into the sky, instantly melting the falling snow. In the North American deserts across the ocean, countless silos simultaneously spewed the flames of death. Dragon Nation's East Sea defense line, along the coastline stretching for hundreds of kilometers, land-based anti-aircraft missile batteries, the East Sea Fleet's vertical launch systems erupted simultaneously with a deafening roar. Thousands upon thousands of interceptors tore through the night, lighting up the pitch-black sea as bright as day. This was the most spectacular and brutal discharge of firepower in the entire history of human civilization. Tens of thousands of missiles wove together in the sky, forming an airtight web of death, charging upward against the descending interstellar beast tide. Countdown to engagement. Head-on collision in the upper stratosphere. No sound could reach the ground, but in the eyes of those on the surface gazing at the stars, the entire night sky instantly turned into a blinding, brilliant white. Tens of thousands of high-yield, high-explosive warheads were detonated at the same altitude and the same time. The flash of the explosions outshone the sun, tearing the night of the blue planet into broad daylight. Terrifying shockwaves swept across the sky tens of thousands of meters high, obliterating everything in their path. Those low-level silicon-based alien beasts, dozens of meters in size, though their shells were hard, could not withstand the thousands of degrees of heat and explosive tearing. Under this unreasonable saturated fire coverage, their armor shattered, their crystal cores were destroyed, turning into burning debris and a rain of sickly green venom, scattering across the ocean. First wave interception success rate, 70%. Over 70,000 low-level targets destroyed. The intelligence officer shouted in excitement, but this brief joy lasted less than 2 seconds. Alarm! High-energy reactions have not weakened. The big ones blocked the explosions. They've breached the fire net. On the holographic screen, the thick smoke of the explosions was forcibly torn apart. Hundreds of Lord-level beasts, over 200 or even 300 meters long, with shattered armor, and engulfed in flames, like demons crawling out of hell, fearlessly continued their descent toward the surface. Their silicon shells appeared eerie and semi-molten under the high heat, yet they still stubbornly protected the energy cores within. The first line of defense was forcibly breached. Boom! 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 Minutes later, These behemoths crashed violently into the Pacific and the East China Sea. The fall of every Lord-level beast was equivalent to detonating a multi-megaton nuclear bomb. Tens of thousands of tons of seawater were hurled skyward by the terrifying kinetic energy. An apocalyptic tsunami, 100 meters high, instantly surged, like a grayish-white wall of size, roaring as it swept toward the coastline of the Dragon Country. East Sea Fleet, intercept. On the Kunlun, the 10,000-ton destroyer that became flagship after the Taihang sank, the fleet commander gripped the railing tightly, letting the storm and freezing seawater lash his face, hoarsely roaring his orders. Facing the 100-meter tsunami crashing down like a mountain, the Dragon Country fleet didn't retreat a single step. All ship propulsion systems at full power, braving the violent waves, forcing their way into the troughs of the tsunami. Main batteries, fire at full power. Load high-frequency vibration shells. The fleet's 130mm main gun batteries let out a roar that tore the air. High-frequency vibration armor-piercing shells, urgently modified by Chun Jingshan's team, like a storm of metal, poured down on the Lord-level beasts just emerging their hideous heads from the water. The weakness data I provided played a decisive role at this moment. A 300-meter four-legged silicon beast had just opened its fanged maw, preparing to spray corrosive acid at a frigate. 3 high-frequency vibration shells precisely hit the third armor plate gap below its neck. Crack! The silicon armor, which even armor-piercing shells couldn't penetrate under the sonic resonance of a specific frequency, instantly became covered in spiderweb-like cracks, then shattered violently. The exposed energy core had no time to shift before being directly hit by a following high-explosive shell. Roar! The giant beast let out a piercing scream. The energy core exploded within its body. Its massive body convulsed a few times and crashed heavily onto the sea. Green blood stained the waters for several nautical miles. It works. Keep firing. Aim for below the neck. Frontline sailors' eyes bloodshot loaded shells frantically. But the number of alien beasts was simply too great, though human firepower was precise. In the face of absolute numerical superiority, the defense line was still being pushed back inch by inch. A beast with giant bone wings suddenly lunged from the seabed, its sharp wings like 2 giant guillotines, instantly slicing a 2,000-ton missile boat in half. In the flash of the explosion, dozens of sailors were sucked into the seabed vortex before they could even scream. Gap in the left flank. 3rd Mech Battalion, move up. On the coastline, the Dragon Country Heavy Armored Army, already on standby, moved. Hundreds of 10-meter-tall military all-terrain mechs marched with heavy steps into the shallow waters. Heavy electromagnetic cannons on the mechs' arms emitted eerie blue sparks, engaging in a brutal melee with the surviving beasts trying to storm the beach. Flesh and steel roared, venom and artillery intertwined. The entire East Sea defense line became a frantically spinning meat grinder. For every meter advanced, both sides paid an excruciating price. Just as the battle on the surface reached a fever pitch, Zero Forbidden Zone, a seabed trench 1,200 meters deep, the artillery fire and rolling tsunamis outside seemed to have nothing to do with this place. The surrounding seawater was strictly isolated by an incredibly powerful anti-gravity field outside. I lay coiled on the rocky bed, eyes closed. The obsidian bone armor on my body was trembling slightly, making strained clicking sounds. At this moment, a specially modified deep-sea unmanned submersible, stripped of all weapon modules, was struggling through the turbulence toward the edge of my anti-gravity field. Inside the command room, academician Chen Jingshan pressed his hands firmly onto the console, staring intently at the deep-sea footage on the screen. What the submersible carried was the controlled fusion energy core that the global research team had poured everything into creating. Linye, can you hear me? Chun Jingshan's voice traveled directly to the seabed via low-frequency sound waves. The main force of the alien beasts has landed. The pressure on the defense line has reached its limit. This is the final feast humanity has prepared for you. Eat it and survive. I slowly opened my eyes. In those dark gold vertical pupils, there was no trace of post-sleep confusion, only palpable brutality and fighting spirit. I opened my massive maw, emitting a low hum. A gap opened in the anti-gravity field, and the submersible slid directly into my mouth with the current. I didn't chew. With a gulp, I swallowed the fusion core containing the total energy of the world's nuclear arsenal into my belly. Silence. A deathly silence. For 10 full seconds, there was no movement on the seabed. The core isn't reacting. Is the stomach acid concentration not enough to melt the shell? Chun Jingshan was breaking into a cold sweat in the command room. But in the 11th second, thump, a dull sound like an ancient war drum exploded from deep within Lin Ye's chest. This sound, conducted through the seawater, even caused the sonar systems on the surface to redline and crash instantly. Then came the second thump. That was my heartbeat. The moment I swallowed the fusion core, the biological reactor in my body and that man-made fusion core underwent a violent fusion. A terrifying heat that defies current human physics instantly swept through my entire body. Pain. A soul-rending agony. I felt my internal organs being thrown directly into a steel furnace. My original cells collapsed instantly under the wash of this destructive energy, only to be forcibly reorganized by a stronger genetic chain in the next second. Roar. A piercing and painful roar erupted from the depths of the ocean. The surrounding seawater could no longer be isolated by the anti-gravity field, but the moment it touched Lin Ye's body, tens of thousands of tons of freezing seawater were instantly vaporized by temperatures of tens of millions of degrees. Deep on the seabed, a massive vacuum bubble over 2 kilometers in diameter was forcibly vaporized into existence. My originally 500-meter-tall massive body, catalyzed by this violent energy, began its final and most insane growth spurt. 600 meters. 700 meters, 800 meters, my once deep blue stegosaurus-like dorsal fins, now completely transformed into a burning crimson gold. The obsidian-like heavy bone armor shattered piece by piece, replaced by a layer of ultimate armor. My muscle lines became thicker and more bulging. Every vein flowed with fusion nuclear energy capable of destroying heaven and earth. Ultimate form, Red Lotus Godzilla. On the sea surface, the battle had reached its most dangerous edge. Commander, we can't hold them back. A 500-meter class Apex Lord has emerged from the deep sea. The radar operator pointed at the despairingly large red dot on the screen. His voice was shrill. Above the sea level, a mountain-sized, six-headed serpentine alien beast burst through the water. Its massive body, hundreds of meters long, twisted casually, overturning 3 missile destroyers nearby. Ordinary artillery hitting its ridiculously thick armor. Wasn't even a scratch. It raised its 6 heads. The crystals in its chest erupted with a blinding deathlight, a destruction ray fusing high-pressure electromagnetism and strong acid, precisely locking onto the coastline of Donghai City. There were millions of civilians who hadn't yet fully moved into deep underground shelters. Stop it. Stop it at all costs. All fighter jets, ram into it. Human weapons before this Apex Lord seemed so pale and powerless. The light of the destruction ray reached its peak brightness, on the verge of erupting. At this critical moment, the sea beneath the serpentine beast suddenly underwent violent nuclear boiling. The entire East China Sea seemed to boil in an instant. Billowing white smoke soared into the sky, obscuring the battlefield. Then, a massive black hand, covered in dark red magma veins, indescribably thick hand, like the claw of the Grim Reaper reaching out from the abyss of hell, violently tore through the boiling water, and gripped the main neck of the multi-headed serpentine beast. This 500-meter class Apex Lord, before this giant hand, was like a common snake caught by the neck, utterly powerless to resist. Where do you intend to destroy? A deep, violent sonic wave with a metallic tremor exploded in the minds of everyone and every monster on the battlefield thunderously. The boiling seawater parted like a waterfall to both sides. An ultimate demon god, over 800 meters tall, flowing with crimson magma light ultimate demon god, stepping on the continental shelf of the seabed, slowly straightened its body. My vertical pupils, burning with dark golden flames, coldly looked down at the struggling Apex Lord in my hand. I opened my abyss-like maw, without any charging. A crimson gold Nebula Breath over 30 meters in diameter, blasted directly into the serpentine beast's chest at point-blank range. Sizzle. Temperatures of tens of millions of degrees instantly melted all defenses. That arrogant Apex Lord didn't even have time to scream. Its massive body was instantly evaporated into the most primitive atomic form, and scattered with the wind. One-shotting an Apex Lord, the entire battlefield fell into a dead silence. Whether it was the remaining alien beasts, or the blood-stained soldiers of the Dragon Nation, all stared blankly at that figure standing between sea and sky, like a god descending. I shook off the remaining silicon-based ash from my claws, raised my head, and let out a terrifying roar that shook the entire blue planet. The Dragon Nation's defense line. I've taken over. Anyone not afraid to die? Come and get it. Above the boiling East China Sea, the crimson gold pillar of light piercing heaven and earth slowly dissipated. The waters where the serpentine Apex Lord once stood now only held a bottomless giant vortex. Millions of tons of surrounding seawater were evaporated away, revealing the scorched, dark red seabed below. A brief silence, then, whether it was the civilians retreated to underground shelters, or the soldiers holding the coastline, all erupted in throat-tearing roars. The apex beast humans feared most couldn't even last one move before me. This 800-meter-tall Red Lotus Demon God seemed to have truly become the absolute ruler of this planet. But this earth-shaking cheer lasted for less than 10 seconds. Screech. Outside the atmosphere above, that soul-shaking sound of space tearing returned. This time, the sound was 10 times duller and 100 times more violent than before. Inside the eastern Theater Underground Command Center. The global radar map on the main control screen instantly went black and crashed. Reboot. Switch to backup lines. Veins bulged on Lin Jianjun's forehead as he slammed his palm onto the console. 3 seconds later, backup radar came online. The moment the screen became clear, every senior staff officer and technician in the hall, including the battle-hardened generals of various nations, felt as if the blood had been drained from their bodies. Their faces turned pale as paper. The rift expanded. The deep purple rift, originally only a few hundred kilometers wide, was forcibly torn to over 1,000 kilometers by a cosmic power. And behind that rift, which looked like a demon's maw, it was no longer sporadic meteor showers, but a sea, an interstellar tide of countless silicon-based alien beasts, blotting out the sky. They squeezed, they roared, like a black torrent breaking through a dam, pouring down completely. There was no need for radar to calculate the numbers. Looking up, the entire sky was filled with dense alien beasts. Not a single sliver of starlight could penetrate through. This isn't a war. A European old general slumped, defeated in his chair, his lips trembling. This is a cleansing. Lin Jianjun stared fixedly at the screen, his eyes bloodshot. He grabbed the all-band communication microphone, his voice hoarse but filled with a manic ferocity. What's the panic? The sky hasn't fallen yet. Lin Yi is still holding the line up front. Pass my order. Turn the ammunition depots upside down for me. Even if we sink the entire East China Sea, we must nail these beasts into the ocean. On the surface, the East China Sea defense line, the true meat grinder, had only just begun to turn. Hundreds of thousands of silicon-based alien beasts slammed into the sea. They no longer provoked the Red Lotus Demon God, emitting millions of degrees of heat. Instead, they displayed a swarm-like, spine-chilling tactical discipline, flanking, dispersing, surging like a black tide toward the Dragon Nation's coastline stretching for hundreds of kilometers. The waves were completely dyed dark green by the bodies of the alien beasts. Fire! On the coastline, thousands of heavy howitzers and railguns let out a soul-shaking roar. The barrels, due to continuous overloaded firing, turned a dangerous dark red. Some barrels even melted and exploded during launch. But this could not stop the Dragon Nation's artillery from their frantic pouring. The first 100-meter class alien beasts had their shells shattered and green blood spraying under the dense barrage. But the beasts behind stepped over the corpses of their comrades, charging onto the beach through the gunfire. Third Heavy Mech Company, follow me. Push these pieces of trash back into the sea. Captain Wang Rui's eyes were bloodshot, piloting a 15-meter-tall Xing Tian-class heavy mecha, drawing the high-frequency vibration blade from his back, leading the charge toward a spider-like beast that had just crawled ashore. The blade slashed violently into the beast's jointed limb. Sparks flew everywhere. The mecha's power core shrieked with an overload warning. Wang Rui gritted his teeth, forcing the control lever forward. The high-frequency vibration sliced through the beast's carapace. Corrosive green fluid erupted instantly, splashing onto the mecha's armor plates, burning away in clouds of white smoke. The beast screeched in agony. A sharp forelimb suddenly pierced the mecha's left arm, ripping it clean off. I'll take you bastards down with me. Wang Rui didn't back down. The mecha's remaining right arm gripped the beast's head tightly, detonating the miniature reactor in its chest. Boom! A blinding fireball erupted on the beach. Man and beast perished together. Such brutal scenes were playing out every second along the vast coastline. With flesh and blood and constructs of steel, humanity forged an impassable great wall on the sands. No one retreated, because one step back meant leaving countless unarmed compatriots behind. And at the very front of this brutal battlefield, in the deep sea zone, I was trapped in an unprecedented war of attrition. The Red Lotus form granted me world-destroying power, but right now, besieging me, were 10,000 Lord-level beasts, each 200 to 300 meters long. They were like a swarm of hungry army ants, frantically climbing my 800-meter-tall colossal body. Sharp mandibles, venomous stingers, high-pressure corrosive acid. They used every means to attack my Red Lotus armor. I swung my massive arms violently, like swatting flies, smashing a dozen beasts on my shoulders into a pulp of meat. My giant tail swept through the water, triggering an underwater hurricane, grinding hundreds of charging beasts to shreds. But there were too many. As soon as one wave fell, another, larger wave rushed in. Their powerful silicon-based carapaces couldn't withstand a direct hit, but the accumulated physical momentum of their numbers actually managed to slow my movements. Roar! I let out a savage roar. The fusion core in my chest throbbed violently. I abandoned close-quarters combat. The crimson-gold dorsal fin on my back flared to its limit. Frombome, a translucent crimson-gold nuclear fusion pulse, centered on me, exploded outward across the sea surface. This was an all-out clearing technique. Wherever the pulse swept, those 100-meter Lord-level beasts were like eggs in a microwave. Their internal silicon crystals overloaded and detonated instantly. Within a 50 nautical mile radius, 10,000 beasts exploded simultaneously in a single strike. The first one looked like an upright walking heavy beetle. Its body was covered in an absurdly thick, dark gold silicon crystal armor. 2 mountain-sized bone-cleaving blades extended from its arms. It had no organs for spitting acid. All its evolution points were spent on absolute physical defense and melee destruction power. Codename Heavy Tyrant. The second one. Its body had an eerie streamlined shape, like a hybrid of a deep-sea eel and a cheetah. It lacked heavy armor. Instead, it had a black biological membrane that could completely absorb light. Around it, space was subtly refracting, as if it could vanish into the void at any moment. Codename Void Hunter. The third one. The most spine-chilling. It was like a giant jellyfish floating in midair. Countless transparent tentacles, thousands of meters long, trailed into the sea. Inside its translucent spherical brain, eerie blue electromagnetic light flashed frantically. Under the interference of this power, the surrounding seawater actually flowed upward toward the sky. Codename Brainworm. This was a hunting squad deployed by the Beast civilization, specifically to target an anomaly like me. My dark gold vertical pupils contracted slightly. In the memories of my past life, I had never seen a combination of this level. Clearly, after devouring the fusion core and manifesting the Red Lotus form, I had completely alerted the high-order civilization behind the rift zone. Old Lin. I didn't look back. My deep voice echoed directly in Lin Jianjun's mind. Handle the trash on the coastline yourselves. I'll take these 3. Lin Jianjun stood before the command console, watching the 3 energy sources radiating death on the holographic screen. He bit his lip. He suddenly drew the pistol from his waist and fired a shot into the air. All units of the East Sea Defense Line, entrust your backs to Lin Yi. The beasts in front of us. Not a single one is allowed through. Kill. Deep in the ocean, the death match between kings officially began. Success. The floating brainworm attacked first. The electromagnetic light in its brain flashed violently. Tens of thousands of transparent tentacles plunged into the sea like a torrential rain. The next second, hundreds of miles of ocean were instantly shrouded in a terrifying high-voltage electromagnetic field. I felt my entire body grow heavy. The violent fusion energy within me actually stalled briefly under the interference of this field. This brainworm's ability could actually forcibly suppress the activity of a nuclear reaction. In the 0.1 second, my energy flow was blocked. The Void Hunter moved, like a drop of ink merging into the ocean. It vanished instantly.
No sonic boom. No splash.
By the time it reappeared, it had eerily closed in on the left side of my neck. Those sharp foreclaws condensed from dark matter, carrying a spatial rending edge, slashed violently into my Red Lotus armor. A tooth-grinding screech of metal echoed through the night sky. My crimson gold scales, claimed to be indestructible, were actually carved open in a 10-meter-long gash. A streak of blinding golden blood sprayed from the wound, dripping onto the sea surface, instantly vaporizing the water into nothingness. This was the first time since my rebirth that I had bled, the first time my defenses were breached. You beast! A fierce light flared in my eyes. I ignored the wound on my neck. My massive right claw swept back, grabbing for the Void Hunter with overwhelming brute force. But the Void Hunter was too fast. After its strike, it immediately became a blur, barely evading my lethal grasp, and in the moment my old strength faded and the new had not yet risen. Boom! The sea surface directly ahead exploded. The Heavy Tyrant, like an interstellar battleship at full throttle, charged forward violently. The massive horn on its head, carrying unrivaled pure kinetic energy, slammed hard into my chest. Thud! A terrifying dull thud, like 2 asteroids colliding. My 800-meter-tall colossal body was actually shoved back 3 full steps by that savage ramming. With every step back, the deep-sea bedrock beneath me collapsed in massive chunks, triggering towering waves hundreds of meters high. The Red Lotus armor on my chest cracked extensively. Golden blood seeped through the gaps in the scales. Perfect coordination, suppression, breaching, heavy strike. These 3 Calamity-class beasts displayed tactical synergy more terrifying than humanity's most elite special forces. Inside the underground command center, watching the screen as my blood sprayed relentlessly, everyone's hearts were in their throats. We can't let them keep grinding him down. Lin Ye's Red Lotus state is being suppressed by the brainworm. Chun Jingshan was pacing frantically. Missile units, take down that giant jellyfish floating in the sky. A few seconds later, dozens of heavy anti-air missiles soared from the coastline, streaking straight toward the brainworm. But the brainworm didn't even glance at them. With a light flick of its transparent tentacles, a powerful gravitational wave instantly formed, twisting and crushing those missiles into scrap metal midair. Conventional human weapons don't even have the right to get close to it. Stop wasting your breath. My low panting echoed through the public frequency, carrying an indelible sense of brutality and fighting spirit. I steadied my stance, wiping away the golden blood spilling from my chest. That long-forgotten sensation of pain didn't make me feel fear. Instead, It ignited the iron-blooded spirit of my past life as a military engineer and my madness. You really think suppressing my nuclear reaction is enough to handle me? I snapped my head up, my dark gold slit pupils locked onto the heavy tyrant in front of me. Since my energy is being jammed, I'll use the most primitive violence to tear you apart. Boom! My legs surged with power on the seabed, no longer using the anti-gravity field to fly, but relying on pure physical strength, like a frenzied ancient beast, charging head-on toward the heavy tyrant. The heavy tyrant let out a dull roar, swinging two massive bone-cleaving blades to meet me. Bang! I didn't dodge, letting that bone-cleaving blade slash into my left shoulder. The sharp edge jammed directly into my hard shoulder blade, but the price was that my terrifying barbed claws had already clamped onto the heavy tyrant's head and shoulders. Shatter! My muscles expanded to their absolute limit in that moment. Crimson magma veins surged wildly beneath my skin. I let out a roar that shattered the heavens. My arms exerted a sudden, violent outward force. Creak! The heavy tyrant's dark gold silicon crystal armor, said to withstand nuclear blasts, under the pull of my absolute brute force, let out a groan of overload. Dense cracks began to spiderweb across the shell's surface. The brain worm above sensed something was wrong, immediately ramping up its electromagnetic output. The void hunter from the side flickered closer again. Its sharp claws carved deep, bone-revealing wounds into my back, trying to force me to let go. Golden blood stained the entire sea region red, but I stood like an iron tower, oblivious to pain, fighting to the death, never retreating. My eyes burned with a ruthless, unparalleled madness. Even if I die today, I'm dragging you all down to hell with me. Crack, accompanied by an earth-shattering sound of shattering. Under the incredulous gaze of all humanity, that heavy tyrant, renowned for its defense, was ripped clean in half by my bare hands. Crack, the cringe-inducing sound of bones snapping exploded over the East Sea. The heavy tyrant's proud, dark gold silicon crystal armor was torn in half by my raw strength. Scalding green ichor poured down like a waterfall, smashing into the boiling sea, sending up plumes of pungent toxic smoke. I panted heavily, casually tossing the two massive halves of the carcass into the sea. Dark red magma veins flowed wildly across my body. My 800-meter frame looked like a blood-soaked demon god. I ignored the deep wound on my left shoulder, locking onto the brain worm in midair and the void hunter lurking in the shadows. After a brief moment of shock, the innate brutality of the interstellar plunderers took over again. The brain worm floating 10,000 meters up emitted a piercing telepathic shriek. Inside its translucent spherical brain, a ghostly blue light instantly flared to a blinding intensity. Thousands of transparent tentacles churned violently in the water. The electromagnetic field once used to suppress nuclear reactions suddenly transformed into an eerie gravitational collapse field. The sea was no longer undulating waves, but was forcibly flattened, like a single solid steel plate. I felt my legs grow heavy, as if 100,000 mountains were pressing down on my shoulders. The continental shelf beneath my feet groaned under the pressure. Cracking in be-in, trying to crush me? A menacing grin spread across my face. The fusion core within me, merged with the world's nuclear reserves, erupted with a deafening thunderous roar. With just you pathetic jellyfish? Braving the terrifying gravity, I forced my right leg out of the seabed, preparing to leap up and rip that brain worm down. But the alien beast's tactical coordination was outrageously precise. In the 0.1 seconds where my movement slowed slightly, the space behind me suddenly rippled like water. The void hunter's black body, like a deep-sea electric eel, lunged out. This time, its target wasn't my scales, but the wound on my left shoulder carved by the heavy tyrant. Squelch! Sharp foreclaws condensed from dark matter, carrying a death light that tore through the void, pierced precisely through that gap, viciously shredding my flesh. Roar! I let out a roar of mingled pain and rage. Golden blood sprayed out like a high-pressure water jet. I spun around violently, my massive tail, carrying the pure kinetic energy to shatter mountains, slashed fiercely at the void hunter. Bang! Though the void hunter was incredibly fast, the distance was too short. It was still clipped by the tip of my tail. Its lightly armored body was instantly sent flying thousands of meters, bouncing across the sea surface like a skipping stone. Green blood leaked across its black skin. The battle seemed to fall back into a brutal stalemate. However, the rift in the sky gave neither humanity nor me a chance to breathe. Warning: a massive energy collapse has appeared deep within the rift. Something is coming out. Inside the Eastern Theater's underground command center, Chun Jingshan stared intently at the wildly fluctuating data panels. His voice was as raspy as sandpaper. On the holographic screen, the ghostly purple spatial rift, thousands of kilometers long, suddenly bulged outward, as if some colossus was forcing its way through the dimensional barrier. Boom! Boom! Two black meteors, larger and more dazzling than the previous heavy tyrant, carrying an apocalyptic pressure, smashed down violently from the rift, with no deceleration at all. Two peak Lord-class alien beasts, over 700 meters tall, dropped directly into the center of the East Sea battlefield. One was a giant wyvern covered in silver-gray crystal spikes. Its spread wings blotted out the sun. Every flap whipped up a level 12 plasma hurricane. Codename Crystal Spike Magic Dragon. The other was a quadrupedal behemoth with 2 giant biological ion cannon turrets towering on its back. With every step it took, the sea surface evaporated. Codename Ion Turret, combined with the previously repelled Void Hunter. 3 peak Lord-class alien beasts formed a dead-angle formation, trapping me firmly in the center, while the brain worm above served as the tactical link and energy suppression hub for the entire field. This was no longer a fight between equals, but a long-planned, absolute slaughter. They're communicating. Lin Jianjun clenched his fists until his knuckles turned white, staring intently at the energy waveforms on the screen. That jellyfish is synchronizing the energy frequencies of those 3 peak lords. What are they planning? On the battlefield, the 3 peak lords didn't charge me immediately. They seemed to realize how monstrous the melee capabilities of this Red Lotus Demon God actually were. The death of the heavy tyrant was a stark warning. The brain worm's tentacles danced in the air. An invisible psychic network linked the 3 behemoths together. Then, a chilling scene unfolded. The crystal thorn magic dragon opened its maw wide. A black light ignited on the Void Hunter's chest. The 2 mounds of flesh on the ion cannon's back began charging frantically. 3 distinct energies, each radiating pure destruction, guided by the brain worm, converged right in the center of their formation, forming a dark matter energy sphere over 100 meters in diameter. The surrounding space, pulled by the sphere, began to warp, creating visible black hole-like edges. Seawater was forcibly sucked in, annihilated in an instant. Their target wasn't Lin Yi. Chen Jingshan suddenly realized something. The blood in his veins seemed to freeze instantly. He grabbed the communicator, screaming at the top of his lungs, "Old Lin, look at their trajectory prediction lines. That energy sphere isn't locked onto Lin Yi at all." Lin Jianjun whipped his head toward the tactical map. The red line representing the beam of destruction.
Bypassed Lin Yi'se massive frame.
Pointing straight toward the rear. That was the coastline of the Dragon Nation. That was Donghai City. Behind the defense line, millions of civilians were still queuing for underground shelters, not yet evacuated. Those bastards! Lin Jianjun's eyes turned bloodshot in an instant. He ripped open the collar of his uniform, veins bulging on his forehead. All close-in weapon systems, all sea-based interceptors. Fire! Blow that energy sphere to hell. It's too late. Chief, the energy level is too high. Conventional gunpowder weapons will be annihilated upon approach. The staff officer screamed in despair. On the sea, the dark matter sphere had expanded to its limit. The 3 peak Lord-class beasts let out a mocking, cruel screech. They possessed intelligence equal to humans. Since they couldn't kill the strongest guardian head-on, they would destroy what he was sworn to protect, make him watch everything behind him turn to ash, and utterly crush his spirit. A beam hundreds of meters wide, fusing plasma, dark matter, and strong acid, a hybrid ray of annihilation, like a light sword cutting through the world, roared forth. The beam was too fast. The air in its path was instantly incinerated into plasma. A vacuum canyon was plowed into the ocean, reaching the seabed. The aura of destruction instantly enveloped all of Donghai City. Despair, a deathly despair. The artillerymen on the coast forgot to load their shells. The crowds at the shelter entrances froze. Everyone looked up, staring at the white light of death that filled their entire vision. Nowhere to hide, nothing to stop it. The steel defense line humanity took such pride in. Before this combined ray of 3 peak lords and the brainworm's full power, it was simply a pathetic joke. Are we going to die? A young mother clutching her child closed her eyes in despair. At this critical moment that decided the fate of humanity, roar, a world-shaking roar, filled with resolve and madness, drowned out the thunder of the beam. I didn't hesitate for a single second. The moment that ray of destruction fired, I completely abandoned my guard against the brainworm above. I dropped every defensive stance. I pushed my fusion core's output to the red line of overload. Anti-gravity field at full power. My massive body, as if teleporting, shifted thousands of meters sideways, throwing myself directly into the path of the beam. I didn't take it with my chest, because my chest and neck had relatively fragile hidden gill slits. I whipped around, exposing my broad, thick back, covered in stegosaurus-like fins and red lotus armor, fully facing the pillar of death capable of destroying a continental shelf. You want to touch the people behind me? Did you ask me first? Collision beyond words. The moment that fused ray slammed into my back, felt as if the entire earth stopped rotating. A blinding light robbed everyone of their sight. Then came a terrifying sonic boom that shattered eardrums. Tens of millions of tons of seawater evaporated instantly. The shockwave turned into a physical wall of air, uprooting every tree and sandbag fortification on the coast. coast.
Linie.
Inside the command center, Lin Jianjun's eyes nearly burst from the strain. His fist slammed hard against the glass. The global livestream flickered in the blinding light, struggling to recover the signal. 100 aircraft, hundreds of high-altitude drones, transmitted this scene of ultimate tragedy, in real time to screens in every corner of the world. In the footage, that 800-meter-tall Red Lotus Demon God used his own flesh and blood to tank the world-ending beam. Pain. A pain that exceeded the limits of any nervous system. I felt as if my back were being shredded by a red-hot chainsaw. The Red Lotus bone armor, claimed to be indestructible after 2 fusion evolutions, under the continuous erosion of 3 peak energies, began to emit a piercing cracking sound. 1 piece, 2 pieces, 10 pieces. Those obsidian hard fins, under the impact of the annihilation ray, shattered and exploded one by one. The dark red armor was melted away, revealing the thick muscles pulsing with golden nuclear energy beneath. Then, the muscles were torn apart by the terrifying heat and dark matter strangulation. A massive wound, deep to the bone, spanned my entire back. Golden blood, like a bursting river, poured down in a waterfall, crashing into the boiling sea. Every drop of blood hitting the water triggered a small energy detonation. The 3 peak lords increased their energy output. The pillar of light grew thicker, pushing my massive body backward across the sea. 100 meters, 500, 1,000. The continental shelf beneath my feet was plowed into a bottomless trench. The immense pressure forced my body forward, as my powerful claws dug deep into the seabed rocks, leaving 10 long, harrowing gouges. He can't hold on. His energy shield is collapsing. His backbones are already carbonizing. Chun Jingshan, staring at the data turning black-red, tears streaming down his face, screamed into the microphone, trembling.
Linie.
Get out of there. You're going to die. Get out of there. I heard the screams coming through the earpiece, and images of my past life, waiting for death in the ruins, flashed through my dark gold eyes. Back then, the sky was filled with alien beasts. The human armies had fought to the last man. No reinforcements, no hope. But now it's different. Feeling the agony that threatened to tear my soul apart, I turned my head slightly, glancing toward the distant coastline. There were armored soldiers who detonated glory bombs to cover him. There were Air Force pilots who, knowing it was a suicide mission, still flew their jets straight into the brainworm. There were Lin Jianjun's bloodshot eyes that had never given up on me. Those tiny humans gave me all their trust and their last cards. They treated me as a god. And if I am a god, how can I shrink back in front of my believers? I won't retreat a single step. Even in death, I grit my teeth, the metallic sweetness of golden blood filling my mouth. Not only did I not move, I violently straightened my spine, which had been bent by the beam. I braced myself against that beam of light, powerful enough to melt me alive. Step by step, I pushed forward. The rock strata beneath my feet collapsed, so I stepped upon the void. The bones in my back shattered. I used violent nuclear energy to force them back together. At this very moment, in countless underground bunkers across the globe, billions of people stared intently at their screens. No one spoke, only suppressed sobs and hands tightly covering mouths. On the screen, the monster stood with its back to the human city. Its entire back had been beaten into a bloody pulp. Golden blood stained half the screen red, but he was like an iron wall that would never fall, standing firmly between the Grim Reaper and humanity. Big brother, a 7 or 8-year-old boy pointed at the screen, wailing heart-wrenchingly, "Please don't die. Okay?" Just as all of humanity thought Lin Yi was about to perish under the erosion of that beam at that moment, a sudden mutation occurred. The fusion core within me, which had been struggling to hold on, after being squeezed to the limit by the external destructive energy, finally broke through its original physical shackles, entering a state of completely uncontrolled overclocking. A dull, heavy thumping of a heartbeat not only exploded across the ocean surface, but echoed directly in the hearts of all mankind. The dark red lava veins on my body instantly evolved into a blinding, light-devouring crimson gold. It was an ultimate destructive power that even the laws of the universe would shun. The beam of light suddenly froze, not because the alien beasts stopped attacking, but because the energy they spewed was actually forcibly devoured and assimilated by the crimson gold light surging from the wound on my back. Had your fun yet? My voice was no longer that metallic bass from before, but carried a hoarse brutality that seemed capable of tearing the heavens apart. I whipped around violently, ignoring the fatal wound on my back that exposed the bone. My powerful legs kicked off the seabed with a sudden burst. An anti-gravity field and crimson gold nuclear energy erupted simultaneously. Boom! Charging through that fading beam of destruction, like a sun moving in reverse. I crossed tens of thousands of meters in an instant, killing my way directly to the front of the 3-peak Lord-level beasts. Now, it's my turn. I gave them absolutely no chance to flee or defend. I opened my abyssal maw, my chest swelling like a massive bellows. All the crimson gold energy, all the rage, along with the beam I had just devoured, every ounce of energy, was all compressed deep within my throat. Nebula Breath, full power release, a crimson gold beam of light over 100 meters in diameter, carrying an unparalleled, violent majesty, erupted with a roar. This was no longer mere high temperature and shockwaves. This was pure particle annihilation. The first to be hit was the massive ion cannon beast. Couldn't even let out a single roar. Its shield, along with its indestructible heavy carapace, the moment it touched the Nebula Breath, was instantly decomposed into basic particles. The beam's momentum didn't falter, sweeping across the field. The crystal spike demon dragon tried to flap its wings to escape into the sky, but under the sweep of the crimson gold beam, its wings were vaporized instantly. Then came its head, then its body. The Void Hunter tried to vanish into a spatial rift, but the high-energy particle stream of the Nebula Breath locked down the surrounding spatial curvature, ripping it violently out of the void. Then, amidst a series of piercing screams, it was incinerated into ashes. One strike, 3 kills. 3 arrogant peak lords, under this unrestrained Nebula Breath, were completely erased from the map of the blue planet. Not even a single intact crystal core remained. The beam extended all the way to the horizon, slamming hard into the electromagnetic field of the brain worm outside the atmosphere. With a sharp crack, the brain worm's disgusting spherical brain, like a watermelon hit by a sledgehammer, exploded violently. The sky full of transparent tentacles turned to ash. The sea suddenly became deathly silent, the ordinary alien beasts still fighting humans on the shore. After sensing the sudden disappearance of the peak lords and the brain worm, completely collapsed. The courage of the interstellar raiders was utterly shattered by that crimson gold beam. They stopped attacking, and like a pack of stray dogs, they leaped into the sea frantically, fleeing desperately toward the spatial rift. We won. On the coastline, the blood-soaked soldiers of the Dragon Nation did not cheer. They dropped their scorching weapons, staring intently at the horizon. As the smoke cleared, that colossal figure, 800 meters tall, still stood tall upon the surging waves. The wound on its back was deep enough to see the bone, golden blood still dripping. I gasped for air in heavy gulps. My dark gold eyes, peering through the thick mist, glanced at the silhouette of the safe city in the distance. I curled my massive, fanged maw, as if trying to force a smile. Then, that mountain-like body swayed slightly, and my eyes slowly closed. Boom! Water splashed high into the sky. This guardian beast, who bore the weight of death for all humanity, finally exhausted his last shred of strength, and fell flat on his back into the waves of the East Sea. The 30-day countdown of life and death. Humanity did not perish. The blue planet did not shatter. This brutal war of defense finally came to an end with a Pyrrhic victory for man.